So welcome friends, how are you all? So today we are gonna see what if Naruto was become Vulpine and Naruto x Donna Troy movie. A man stood on the outskirts of a large and detailed circle in a wide open field. The circle was 15 feet in diameter and had runes filling it to the center. The man grinned insanely, raising his arms and incanting in an ancient tongue. Around him, blue flames flickered to life atop several arcane candlesticks. The incanting man's eyes shone blue as he got into a trance, his age flickering between his various age to a skeleton. While this was going on, a man around the same age as the incanting man silently stepped into the field. He was dressed in a light brown suit and his russet hair had been slicked back, along with a lone white strand in the center. In his hand was a cane with a red gem that was glowing. As he stepped into the field, the newcomer frowned as the circle began to glow. The incanting man began to laugh. Finally, "The world will be mine. Mine. Mine." "I think not," the newcomer murmured to himself before he tossed his cane away. The man closed his eyes. Gone. Gone the form of man. Release the demon Etrigan. With the words spoken and the situation in mind, the man burst into flames before he shrunk. Attracting the other man's attention, a pasty yellow creature with blood-red eyes stood where he once was. His head had two small horns, finned ears, and protruding fangs from his lower jaw. The creature wore a sleeveless, red armor and a matching pair of briefs. A fishnet-like sleeve similar to chainmail protected his arms and legs, and a belt made of leather with a gold buckle that had a pentagram engraved on it circled his waist. A royal blue cape fell to his back with a silver buckle engraved with a pentagram. Dark black spalders covered his shoulders and clawed feet protruded from red fabric that covered two equally black greaves that matched the arm guards he wore from his wrist to mid-forearm. New 52's Demon Knights #1 cover. This was the son of Belial, the demon also known as Etrigan. "Faust, you fiend, your horrors will be stopped this night," Etrigan declared as he stalked forward, still rhyming due to his recent transformation. "You will return to your chains, placed there by my demonic might." The demon, "I should have known this was too easy," Faust growled before smirking. "You're too late, Etrigan. I've already finished the incantation. Soon the world will be mine and it will all be thanks to the legendary Kyuubi no Kitsune." "You are a fool to believe the demon of lore would obey you," Etrigan growled out as he braced himself to attack. "Twice so if you think you'd have a chance against my hellish flames." The demon then shot a ball of fire from his mouth. Faust raised his hand and a blue mystical energy formed a shield around him, stopping the fireball before it could connect. Faust grinned and formed his own fireball, sending it at Etrigan in order to stop him. The demon merely opened his mouth and ate the fireball, licking his lips afterwards. "Crispy," he commented with a sly grin. Faust sent a bolt of lightning instead, sending Etrigan rolling back from the blow with a grunt. "That's more like it," Faust mused with a smirk before he looked at the crackling circle. "Ah, and now my first step to world domination commences." "No," Etrigan growled as he pushed himself to his feet. The two watched, one in growing horror while the other was shaking with excitement. The runes glowed brightly, turning a blinding white, causing the two to shield their eyes. When the light died down, their faces fell into different emotions. Etrigan's horror became a wide smile of amusement while Faust's sadistic excitement became trembling anger. For sitting in the center of Faust's summoning circle was a baby, a newborn that was wailing from the cold. On each of the infant's cheeks were three whisker-like markings and a small patch of golden hair covered the babe's head. It was the artwork on his stomach that gathered most attention, however, as it slightly resembled Faust's runes. What is this?" Faust exclaimed with rage. In his fury he aimed a growing ball of magic at the baby. "The demon mocks me. I think not. I am Felix Faust, immortal and soon to be ruler of the world." Etrigan performed an impressive leap before landing in front of the infant, shielding him from the attack. The demon roared as it took the blow but stood strong in front of the child, narrowing his two blood-red eyes as his body smoked. Etrigan growled, "To kill a child, a crime I've learned to detest. I believe it's time you and I finish our fight." Etrigan held a clawed hand out to Faust and began speaking in growls and snarls, the ancient demon tongue. Faust's eyes widened and he turned to run, only for his body to be encased in glowing red chains. Terrified, Faust turned to look at the scowling Etrigan as he stalked forward, a sadistic grin on his face. "Let us see just how immortal you are, Felix Faust," the demon said lowly. Faust's skin turned white and for the first time in a good while, he felt true fear. 15 minutes later, and that takes care of that. Etrigan grumbled as he stalked away from the charred and recovering body of Felix Faust. The child had cried himself to sleep while the demon had his fun, Etrigan discovered as he returned to the circle. Personally, he didn't care if the child lived or died, but blood would. In fact, were it not for their binding, Etrigan would have acted on his instincts to kill the child for his power. That not being the case, Etrigan growled lowly as he wrapped his cape around the infant. "If blood wants to keep the infant on this plane, He gets to take it home, the demon grumbled before he rhymed. Gone. Gone Etrigan. Resume once more the form of man. In a burst of hellish fire, Etrigan once more became Jason Blood. The former knight of Arthur's court knelt down and picked the baby up, smiling at the sleeping baby as he did so. Hello little one, Jason said softly as he cradled the naked babe covered by Etrigan's cape. A glint of silver caught Jason's eye and found a silver lace with a spiral etched in one side. Flipping it over, he found Japanese kanji, which he yumed was a name. Reading it, he chuckled. Ah, a dual meaning, Jason mused to himself, though I suppose your mother or father meant for you to be the maelstrom rather than the fish cake, Naruto. I suppose I should leave you at an orphanage, but there was a reason Faust summoned you, for your safety and theirs. I will take you in. Welcome to the blood family, Naruto. 18 years later, Mount Justice, July 25, 2010. Inside the hidden base of Mount Justice, 5 teenagers waited patiently for a briefing. The 5 teens consisted of 1 female and 4 males, each wearing different attire. The first we come across was the sidekick to the famous Batman, Robin the Boy Wonder, who was the youngest of the group at age 13. He was the team's tech specialist, but often failed to hang back when the situation called for it. The Boy Wonder wore a costume consisting of red and black tights similar to a gymnast's underneath a black and yellow cape. A domino mask hid his eyes and his raven hair was a short mess, as though he ruffled it with his hands. The next, the elected leader, was Aqualad, known also as Calderon. Or simply Calder, a 16-year-old Atlantean representative. He was voted by the team to be their leader during their last mission due to his level-headedness and his maturity. His hair was light blonde, contrasting his dark skin tone, and his eyes were very light blue. A skin-tight red shirt and dark blue tights was his choice of attire, and strapped to his back was his waterbearers, the most recent development in Atlantean warfare tech. The tallest of the 5 was Superboy, who had yet to take up a civilian name, a clone of the powerful Kryptonian Superman, and he was physically 16. He was tense and seemed ready to snap, partially due to his still confused state of mind. Raven hair cut short adorned the top of his head and equally dark blue irises surrounded his pupils. He declined wearing tights, preferring to wear a black shirt with his donor's emblem, navy cargos and brown combat boots. Standing to the side and eyeing the boy of steel was John's niece Megan Morse. Megan Morse aka Miss Martian, the only girl part of the team. The Martian girl was technically 48, making her the oldest of the group, but it was the equivalent to being 16 on Earth, so she never brought it forward. She had light green skin and shoulder-length orange hair. A white shirt covered her modest bust and torso and had a red X on it, similar to her uncle's attire, and a blue skirt that ended mid-thigh matched her cape and boots. The last member of the group was playing around with an orange. This was Kid Flash, Wally West, the nephew of the Flash who had recreated his uncle's chemical to become the sidekick of his favorite hero. He wore a reversed coloration of his uncle's outfit, but with red pants, gloves and goggles. The speedster and self-proclaimed ladies' man of the team was utterly bored and sick of waiting. It had only been 5 minutes. Their latest mission in Santa Prisca was labeled a success, and their babysitter Red Tornado, a defunct android created to be evil, had called them for a briefing. "Team, I have a mission for you," Batman said as his face flickered on the large screen. His image was shrunk to half the screen as old footage of a madly laughing teen with a bowl cut and 2 pointed horns on his head while holding a cat came to life next to him. What you're seeing is footage from 2007, the last known footage of Klarion the Witch Boy. Several incidents with him have occurred, but this is the most accurate footage we have. For this mission, I have hired a specialist to help you. Oh, I hope the specialist is a hot she, Kid Flash said excitedly to himself. Robin smirked and asked, "Why, so you can make a bigger idiot of yourself than usual?" "Dude. Uncool," pouted the speedster. The rest of the team snickered or smiled at Kid Flash's expense, making the 15-year-old's pout increase. Recognized. B-23, Vulp, the teleporter's voice echoed in the cave. The team eyed the newcomer with interest and elation on Robin's part. Standing on the teleporter was a calm blonde with hair that could match the sun in its brightness and shaved at the sides. Though the top was spiked, he stood at the same height of Aqualad and had a swimmer's build. He wore black jeans torn at the knees and sandals that were duct-taped together. A white wife beater covered his defined torso underneath a blood-red jacket and a silver pendant dangled from his. He raised a hand and smiled, revealing slightly pointed teeth while his 2 blue eyes sparkled. "Bird boy. What's up, buddy?" the blonde asked as he walked in. He looked up at the screen. "I'll take it from here, brewer, bats." The screen shut off and the blonde shrugged before greeting the boy wonder with a fist pound. "How you doing, dude?" "I am fine, Naruto. How's life?" Robin asked as he returned the fist. "Meh, could be better if Klarion the bitch boy wasn't acting out," the newly named Naruto said with a shrug, "but hey, that's life." Curious about the teen before them, Aqualad asked, "Who are you?" Name's Nicholas J. Blood, officially, but everyone calls me Naruto. When we're on the job, you can call me Vulp. Naruto replied as he leaned against a table. As to why I am here, well, my father's been kidnapped by Klarion the bitch boy. Isn't that a, whatcha-call-it, conflict of interest? Kid Flash asked with a frown. Naruto's eyes rolled. Yeah, but him hurting my dad isn't my concern, it's him using Etrigan that I am worried about. Etrigan? The team repeated in confusion save Robin. The boy wonder felt his eyes widen and his skin pale. Naruto nodded and placed a parchment on the table. He unrolled it and placed a hand on it before he continued. Yeah, let me show you. Flat image becomes full. Show the world what you fold. A light emitted from the paper and the group gasped as the image of Etrigan on the paper burst into life behind him. Naruto looked at the image with a small smile. My father's closest ally and worst enemy all in one. Etrigan, the son of Belial, brother to Merlin and known amongst the League as the Demon. How did you do that? Was that magic? Miss Martian asked with wide eyes. Both Superboy and Aqualad looked intrigued while Kid Flash looked skeptical, but was inching away from Etrigan's image all the same. Robin was snickering at the girl's awe and his friend's slightly unnerved state. You're a clever little Martian, aren't you? Naruto teased, making the girl turn invisible from embarrassment, before he nodded. Yes, it's a spell I learned from my father. Who is your father? Aqualad asked, very curious since Atlanteans use both magic and science and it was obvious that the newcomer was trained in the former. The blonde chuckled. Isn't it obvious? Naruto asked as he gestured to the image. Gone Etrigan. Resume once more the form of man. The image burst into fire before it changed into a tall man wearing a business suit, smiling kindly without a hint of malice. Naruto smiled and looked at the image. This is my father, Sir Jason Blood, once a knight that was part of King Arthur's court and today he is the world's most renowned expert in demonology. Even Dr. Fate asks him for help when it comes to the occult sometimes. Why your father is Jason Blood? Aqualad asked in awe. His teacher in Atlantis had praised the man for his knowledge on the occult and his skills in the mystical arts. Yep. Naruto replied cheerfully. He stared at the picture with a sad smile before rolling the parchment up. With a heavy sigh, the blonde continued. But now the power of the demon is at the hands of a very immature Lord of Chaos. Normally, I'd leave it to Dr. Fate, but this is my father we're talking about, so I am not gonna sit around with my thumb up my. Inwardly, Naruto thought, not to mention Dr. Fate's been Mia for a while now. He was shaken from his thoughts as an alert came on screen and his fears became reality. Etrigan was being used to cause untold amounts of chaos in Kansas City, Missouri. Naruto growled and clenched his fist, before looking to Aqualad. I made a deal with Batman to follow your lead so that we could handle Etrigan, he informed his fellow blonde. Don't let me down. Right, Aqualad said with a nod before looking at the team. Let's move. Kansas City. 10 minutes later, Naruto stumbled out of Miss Martian's bioship with a hand over his mouth. He rushed to the nearest trash can and retched, before righting himself and announcing, I really hate flying. Huh. Well, hopefully you can just teleport yourself next time, Kid Flash chimed in. He was struck by the blonde's jacket in response. Hey. Hold that for me, smart, Naruto replied with a smirk. Robin grinned and looked at the other members of the team for their reactions. He closed his eyes and clenched his fists before he spoke. Gimme a second to suit up. Don't take too long, Superboy grunted as he crossed his arms. Naruto took a deep breath before opening his now glowing eyes and spoke in a demonic voice. Farewell to the comfort of skin and bone. Now I bathe myself in an unholy cone, embrace the evil, lose the storm. It's time for this mortal to change his form. Allow me to help Tales of the Nine. Time for this human to become Vulpine. The team gasped as Naruto's body combusted and became engulfed in an evil red light. As the light faded away, it revealed a bipedal red-furred were fox. The only word that the teens could define the new form as that stood a head taller than Superboy. Naruto's shirt had been shredded, and the remains were across his now furry chest from the left shoulder to the right hip and around his waist. His pants had been burned away from the mid-calf down. Dangling from his, however, was a much tighter pendant. It was still loose enough to dangle around his, it just wasn't at the center of his pectorals anymore. Cracking the Vulpine head growled out, "Ah, man, that always feels so good." The team was staring at him in a mixture of shock and horror before Robin started to laugh at their faces, snapping them from their daze. It was Superboy that spoke first. So, magic? Sorta. The Vulpine hero replied with a shrug, more like an incantation to switch on and off my demonic blood. Wish I could keep my clothes intact, but hey, what are y'all gonna do? You still haven't fixed that? Robin asked his friend as his left eye seemed to get larger with his brow rising. The aptly named Vulp gave a grin in response. And risk never getting another reaction from girls like Kara? He cheekily asked. You, my friend, are a masochist, Robin accused. Vulp's grin became larger. No argument here, the demonic teen replied before looking at the rest of the team. We going to find Etrigan or what? C. Square. Raw. Etrigan roared as he stopped an ice cream truck with his hands, a glowing red mark between his eyes, nearby watching with a smile. Klarion stroked his familiar teacle and laughed in excitement while his free hand held a branding rod made of iron. Yes, ice cream. 'Tis a most delicious treat in this realm, especially the wonderful taste of strawberry, the Lord of Chaos chortled out in anticipation. Now, my slave, you know what to do. Yes, my master, the demon growled out as he punched a hole in the side of the truck while the driver ran off. Etrigan tore the hole open and hopped in before ripping out the container of treats. Dropping the container outside of the hole, Etrigan made another exit through the roof. Klarion hummed as he searched the container, Teakle seated on his shoulders, but scowled as he failed to find what he wanted. With an annoyed voice, Klarion whined, push pops, character bars, even that dreadful chocolate taco but no strawberry. What a waste. Slave, rid me of this garbage. Yes, my master, Etrigan growled before taking a deep breath and exhaling fire to melt the treats. Klarion scowled and pointed at the truck with the rod. Destroy the lying machine as well, he ordered his pet demon. Etrigan turned his head to do so, but his fire was extinguished when a blast of water hit him in the face. Comically, he spewed out water before growling. He and Klarion turned to face the team. No fair. Whined the Lord of Chaos, you can't stop my fun. Playtime's over, bullcut, Kid Flash chimed in as he ran towards the boy. He was stopped by Etrigan's arm being stuck out and clothes lining the team. Kid Flash flipped several times before skidding to the sidewalk on his back, groaning as he fell unconscious. Robin, Superboy, with me, Aqualad ordered. Miss M, get Kid Flash out of here. I think not, Klarion exclaimed with a pout and pointing at the group. Meddlers in my way, in your places you will stay. You are unlikable to my folk, so I turn you into an oak. The team gasped as their bodies from the waist down were suddenly changed into trees. Even Kid Flash's body was morphed. Despite his unconscious state, Superboy scowled and looked at the witch boy. You are so getting it once I get out of this. I am shaking in my socks, Klarion mocked as he did a dance of feigned fear. Look how much I fear the mighty. Who are you anyway? They are heroes, my master, Etrigan chimed in helpfully. I knew that, you buffoon. The Lord of Chaos shot back with a scowl. I don't recognize any of them. Do you remember me? A voice asked from above before a body landed on the pavement. Vulp stood at his full height and looked at the predicament the team was in. Wow, you guys having a good time or what? Klarion scowled and pointed at Vulp. You again? I thought I was through with you after that spell. Turns out there's a lot of girls out there willing to kiss a little fox on the lips. Vulp replied as he faced the teen with a grin. How's about you and me go mano y mano, bitch boy? I think not, little fox, Klarion sneered as he held his arm out. Thy body strong and able, turn the beast into a table. Oh, forget that noise. Vulp snarled as he countered with his own hand up. Go back from whence you came, never more to be the same. The spell rebounded off his hand and flew at Klarion, who gasped and forged a mystical shield, absorbing the blast. The Lord of Chaos sneered at him. So you cracked a book open since the last time we met, little fox? Yeah, but I also managed to get in between your mother's legs. The line was pretty long though, Vulp replied. Klarion, while not always seeing eye to eye with his mother, did not approve of the jab. Oh snap, Robin whispered in response. As the team had yet to be released from their spell, they watched with wide eyes as anger leaped off of Clarion's form. I'll do worse than kill you, Vulp. I'll make your father do it for me. Klarion snarled before glaring at the demon. Etrigan. I want his pelt. Bring it, ya crispy old bastard. Vulp growled in anticipation as Etrigan leapt into action. The older medieval demon snarled as he lunged at the younger oriental demon. Vulp braced himself before jumping to his back and pressing his arched feet into the airborne demon's gut, using Etrigan's momentum to send the demon flying through a nearby antique shop. Ta-da! Vulp cried as he kipped back up to his feet and then bowed. Thank you, I'll be here all day. The show isn't over yet. Klarion snarled through his rage and raised the iron brand. Oh, I know, but every magician loves to show off. Vulp replied with a grin before turning to face the leaping demon. For my next trick, I'll make a flaming hole disappear. You're an annoyance, Etrigan growled as he swung fists at his pupil. You're a nuisance. You're a whelp. And I am also cute. I am fluffy. Vulp joked as he dodged the demon's blows. Nice tattoo, Etrigan. How come I can't get one again? Quit joking around and take this seriously. Aqualad cried out. Get us free, we can help you. I've got this, Waterboy. Vulp replied nonchalantly before he was sent rolling with a powerful uppercut. Or, maybe I should get you out, ow. He holds back more than I thought in our spars. The bipedal fox mused as he realigned his jaw. Guess it's time to stop goofing off. Getting to his feet, Vulp raised both of his clawed hands in front of him, his thumbs, index and middle fingers extended. Before he folded his left hand down and his right hand up, a box was formed and intricate runes appeared along the limbs, 2 small circles revealing themselves on the back of his hands. The time for games is said and done. Time to release tail number 1. Vulp growled as mystical energy built up around him. A ripping sound was heard and soon enough a tail sprouted from his backside. It was nearly 2 feet long and the same red hue that his fur was. Vulp growled as his eyes gained a light black lining around them. Ow. Okay. Gotta make some modifications to my pants. Pushing the tail through hurts. Etrigan. Klarion barked as he waved around an iron rod. Kill him. Yes, my master, Etrigan replied with a snarl before speaking calmly. Through the fiery depths of hell I claim. Prepare to taste the demon's flame. Your body will fall today, and so ends our little play. Taking in a deep breath, Etrigan then exhaled stream of bright red flames. Vulp watched the approaching flames with a frown on his face before he grinned. A golden energy engulfed his body and he crossed his arms over his face. The fire met Vulp's energy shield, being stopped in its place, but the force still making the Vulpine hero struggle to stay in place. Slowly, Vulp began to take steps forward, using his arms to cover his face from the heat. The end of his fur was singeing off and his magical aura could only take so much. Burn. 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 Ah ha 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 ha. Klarion cheered as insanity glistened in his eyes, reflecting the sight before him. Maybe another day, Vulp thought with a scowl as he trudged forward, holding one hand up and cocking the other back. The Fox put his extended hand over Etrigan's mouth before sending his other fist forward. Etrigan was sent flying and his head collided with a streetlight, denting the steel pole on impact. As the demon fell unconscious from the rattling head injury, Vulp rounded on Klarion, lunging at the teen. Ah! Teakle, protect me! Klarion cried out as he realized the magic battle would become physical. The cat on his shoulder jumped off and grew into a saber-toothed tiger. Vulp and Teakle collided midair, with Vulp driving his shoulder into the giant cat's gut. Teakle was sent flying into a brick wall, and Vulp landed on his feet in a position ready to pounce. Why you can't do this? It's not fair, Klarion said as he felt Teakle's impact and was staving off his dissipation back to his realm. Vulp merely stood straight and glared down at the teen. I'll do as I damn please, give me the iron. Never, Klarion defied vehemently. Vulp grinned. I was hoping you'd say that, he replied with a sadistic grin on his face as he stalked forward. Klarion, acting quickly, raised the iron and prepared to brand Vulp, only for the Fox to catch his wrist. The grip tightened and Klarion let out a pained cry, forcing a release of the branding iron. Thanks, Vulp growled as he caught the tool in his other hand, but I think it's time someone gave you a swift paddling. Clarion's eyes widened and he sneered, I'd like to see you try. I never said I would do it, Vulp replied as he grinned widely. Clarion's eyes widened considerably before he said something in a different language. Before the eyes of the conscious members of the team, the witch boy fled by melting away into nothingness. A glance around and they would see that Teakle, the saber-tooth, had vanished. Vulp scowled, sneaky little bitch. The fox-like human looked at the brand in his grasp and grabbed it with both hands. He started to utter an incantation under his breath before twisting the iron. The team watched the impressive feat of strength before the stick was torn in half. A large explosion of mystical aura escaped the brand, washing over the team in the center of town. Within seconds, the aura had dissipated and the team was back to normal. Etrigan groaned as he sat up. My head, Vulp. What am I doing here? What happened to Klarion? Who are they and why are there tree branches everywhere? The demon demanded of his taller protege. The fox-like teen rubbed the back of his. He hated the mind-altering after effects of some spells. And so I made the bitch boy run home crying to his milf of a mother. Then I broke that iron thing you hate so much. The kids here got turned back to normal. You snapped out of your trance. Kansas City won't be low on wood for bonfires and the rest is national news for the next few days, Vulp explained as he, the team, and Etrigan walked back to Miss Martian's bioship. The young demonic hero watched his mentor grumble before glaring at the teen. None of this would have happened if you hadn't insisted on acting like a fool with that girl during the auction last week, Etrigan growled. The team looked at the exasperated Vulpine as he groaned. It's something called flirting, Etrigan, Vulp replied before stopping the shorter being, and I am not going to argue with you about the inferiority of human courting to demon mating. Again, can you please just change back so I can talk to my dad? Grr, gone Etrigan. Resume once more the form of man. Etrigan snarled out before he was engulfed in fire. The team, once more save Robin, watched as the demon returned to his human alter ego, Jason Blood. The man grunted and adjusted his clothes before looking at the grinning fox-like head of his son. You're still grounded this weekend, and so you will have to miss that party. Damn, The team looked on with amused faces as the 6-foot bipedal fox pouted, sighing. Vulp shrugged before ripping the rest of his shirt off and tossing it at his father. Vulp closed his eyes before he spoke. Gone. Gone this hellish state. Return the demon to its fate, leave the evil, embrace the storm. Once more this mortal changes form, I have defeated and banished my foe, now return the face of Naruto. The team watched as the Vulpine hero was engulfed in a bright red flash of light. When the light died down, the blonde 18-year-old they met earlier that day returned, only this time he was missing his shirt and sandals. Robin snickered as he saw Miss Martian fade away from view at his revealed chest. Jason tossed the remnants of his son's shirt back, allowing the team to tie the article of clothing around his waist in an impromptu belt and to cover the gaping hole in his trousers. The blonde then went to his destroyed sandals and sighed as he picked them up. Well, they lasted for a few years, I suppose, Naruto mumbled in disappointment before he tossed them aside. He pointed at them with a finger. You served me well, now burn in hell. Jason sighed as the shoes went up in a blaze and were melted to nothing. The immortal glared at his son. How many times must I tell you not to use spells? Etrigan teaches you like that. Ah, come on Dad. Therablast. Naruto replied with a grin as they boarded the bio ship. Way easier than the stuff you give me, too. All you have to do is study, Naruto. Jason sighed out. He loved the boy, but sometimes his laid-back attitude was a real pain to deal with. The blonde rolled his eyes and sat down between Robin and Wally. The latter staring at him intensely, while his father sat in the row ahead of him with the clone and Atlantean, both of who were asking questions about magic. Superboy was curious due to the information he was given about magic being a weakness of Kryptonians, whereas Calder wanted to learn more because of his people's study of the art. Naruto listened in for a bit before the feeling of being watched became too much and he turned to look at a staring Wally. Can I help you? The older teen asked the speedster. Wally nodded and looked around before leaning in. So what are you really using? He asked quietly. Naruto immediately lost his relaxed attitude and frowned. What do you mean? The blonde asked in confusion. Your powers, Wally continued. Some experiment gone wrong, right? And those spells were just side effects of your experiment, right? Oh dear God, Naruto groaned as he sat back. You're a skeptic. Shush. Megan might hear you, hissed the speedster, who glanced at said Martian in fear that she had heard the blonde. Naruto rubbed his temples before glaring at a snickering Robin. Watch it, bird boy, growled the blonde. Robin stopped snickering, but didn't lose the amused smirk on his face. From past experiences with the blonde, the boy wonder knew how defensive over the mystical arts his older friend could be, and with how stubborn Wally was in the belief that there was an explanation for everything, this was bound to be a good source of entertainment, if only he had the forethought to grab some popcorn. Listen, what I did back there was magic, period. I used a branch known as rhythmic demonic to be exact. I don't care what you believe, but don't try and get me to explain how I used my tricks, Naruto said sternly. Wally stared at him before he snickered. Oh man, you really believe in that mumbo-jumbo stuff, don't you? Robin, we need to switch seats. I might kill your friend if we don't. Mount Justice, 5:12 p.m. The whole flight back, Naruto and Wally argued over the existence of magic. Both did so quietly, but eventually the rest of the team and Jason Blood noticed the tension. It was a godsend to finally arrive at the base in Naruto's opinion. If he had to be around the skeptical user of Speed Force for even another moment, Naruto would surely strangle the teen with his bare hands, then reanimate him and do so again. The team and their two guests returned to the main briefing room and Jason headed towards the Zeta tubes. Come along then, Naruto, Jason said. Noticing his son's discomfort with Flash's nephew, being several centuries old, Jason knew how to hide his disagreement with skeptics. His son wasn't as fortunate in that regard, something he hoped would change in time. Naruto nodded and his shoulders dropped their tension as he bade Wally farewell. He gave Robin a fist bump, shook both Superboy and Calder's hands, and then gave a very surprised Megan a kiss on the back of her hand with a bow. That last bit was just to spite the nephew of Barry Allen, who looked ready to kill for the first time in his life as the Martian girl completely vanished from view. I will always regret ever teaching him the art seduction, but I couldn't allow Morgan to use that against him, Jason thought with a shake of his head as he stood on the Zeta tube platform, looking at Red Tornado. He gave a nod when Naruto stepped on his platform. Outgoing. A06. Jason Blood, B23. Vulp Mount Justice's computer echoed through the cave before the two members of the Blood household vanished from view. Wally ground his teeth and sped off to the training room, leaving a laughing Robin and two smirking boys with an embered Martian girl. Gotham City, 5:24 p.m. Naruto and Jason both reappeared at the gates to their estate home. The blonde stretched and yawned as he walked towards the gate, while Jason lingered behind with assurance that he'd be in shortly. After Naruto entered the mansion, Jason turned to the shadows and crossed his arms over his chest. You could have talked to me in the morning, Bruce. Naruto loves to see his godfather every now and then outside of work. The Dark Knight stepped out of the shadows with his cape hiding his form and his cowl on his face. The Mont's masked eyes narrowed before he replied, "This is a conversation best had at night, Jason." "I am sure it is," the old knight drawled in disbelief, "surely it can wait." "I am afraid not," Batman said with a shake of his head. "We've lost contact with Kent Nelson." "Kent can handle himself," Jason interrupted with a frown. "Your paranoia has even spread to my son and I am not sure if I am pleased with that or not. I will tell you what I keep telling him. Kent Nelson is the host for the world's most renowned mystic and has Naboo at his back like I have Etrigan at mine. He's a grown man, Bruce. Unlike you, Jason, he doesn't have youth granted to him by his aide," Batman replied with a scowl. "Fine, send Diana or Zatara over to check on him if it will make you feel better," the head of the Blood household replied with a frown. "He's most likely meditating with Naboo." "Fine, but this isn't the last we'll speak of this," Batman grumbled. "I want him on my team." "The answer is still no. He's 18 years old, I should just take this to him," Batman argued. Jason sent his longtime friend a glare. "He's still young and learning how to control his powers," Jason countered. "One step out of line with his training and the entire planet would face the wrath of his demon." This coming from Camelot's cursed knight. "That was a long time ago and you know better than to bring it up." Jason replied with a scowl. "He's still my son. I refuse to let him off his leash to work with your band of misfit children who have yet to learn how to cooperate." "He did fine today," stated the Dark Knight, "and the team seems to like him. They need a mystic." "Take it to Zatara, then," Jason snapped. "His daughter is more in their age range anyway. He's too old." Batman arched a brow beneath his cowl. "Too old? You just said he was a child, which is it, Jason?" "I will not play these mind games with you, Bruce," the former knight stated. "Today was a one-time thing. The fact that he even has a Zeta designation upsets me. You're not acting like a hero anymore. You're acting like a soldier that needs more troops." "Sometimes they're one and the same," Batman replied coolly. "With each day that pays, more and more metahumans come out of hiding. How much longer will it be before you reveal yourself to the world?" "The day Etrigan and Jason Blood's relationship is revealed is the day the world stops turning," Jason said as he turned on his heel towards the estates. "Have a good evening, Batman." Batman narrowed his eyes at his friend's dismissal. When Jason shut the large door to the Blood estate, Batman raised a hand to his built-in comlink and activated it. Jason was a no-go, just like I said he would be. "Then what do you suggest, Bruce?" a male voice said from the other end of the transmission. "The team needs a mystic and from what we saw, Vulp is the best sidekick to pair with them." "Give me a few days to work on Jason," the Dark Knight replied as he turned on his heel and left through the forest that surrounded the Blood estate. "In the meantime, talk to Zatara about his daughter and ask him to check on Nelson. We cannot lose track of Dr. Fate." "All right. I'll see what I can do," the voice on the other end replied after a sigh. Superman, out. Gotham City, July 26, 2010, 3:05 p.m. Naruto yawned as he approached the bookstore his father sent him to in search of a book on alternate dimensions and the demons in them. There was a title he couldn't pronounce, but that was the gist of what the book would contain. The reason his father, mentor, wanted the book was to get a better idea of what sort of dimension Naruto came from. They knew he came from a dimension where humanity managed to advance more in the biological sense than the technological from the information Naruto obtained from his demon. The demon he contained, which allowed him a portion of its power to change into Vulp, was actually a powerful force of nature with the title of Kyuubi no Kitsune from the natives of another dimension. Unlike the demon of this dimension's Japanese lore, Kurama, as it labeled itself in their 80th encounter, couldn't manipulate the minds of men, but could use the equivalent of magic that was chakra. The two energies were similar enough that Naruto's skill in the art wouldn't be hampered, but the blonde did know one thing. It was a pain to learn Japanese to get a conversation between himself and the giant rabbit-eared fox. As to why the demon was sealed, Naruto didn't know. Kurama was tight-lipped about it and refused to comment, often growling out the word Uchiha with enough hate that convinced the blonde to drop the subject. The last thing he wanted to do was upset the creature he housed as according to his father, who had done so before with Etrigan. The guest in a human's body could cause a decent amount of harm to the host and those around him if not respected. "Well, at least we're ped the ill devour you phase," Naruto mused as he entered the shop called Dark Knight Readers, opened obviously by someone who supported the Batman family as the others in the Cape community called the Masked Heroes of Gotham City. As he entered the practically empty store, Naruto nodded to the clerk, a piercing covered teen that looked rather bored while scratching his nose, and veered towards the section labeled Alternate Realities and Different Dimensions. That sounded promising. However, the second he entered the aisle he was pleasantly surprised as he found that he wasn't the only shopper. The other browser was a raven-haired girl around his age, wearing a black tank top that did nothing to hide her impressive bust and silver bracers covering her wrists. Tight black pants protected her very shapely legs and a silver belt hung around her waist. Her pants were tucked into equally dark-heeled boots. Arching a brow in interest, Naruto walked closer and looked at the cover of her book. Historically accurate records for dimension hoppers. There's actually a book out there for written and published by Dr. Kent Fate. Seriously? We let this get published? The blonde thought in confusion. The girl clearing her throat broke him from the thoughts. Can I help you? She asked, her blue eyes narrowing as her looked at her. It was then he realized two things. The first being that this girl was drop-dead gorgeous, and the second was that while he knew that he was reading the title of the book, it could be seen as him staring at her chest. Oh, shit, Naruto thought as he fought the urge to run away screaming. Thinking quickly, the blonde said the first appropriate thing that popped into his head. That's an interesting choice of literature you have. Really, I couldn't tell, she replied in tone that labeled him as an idiot for saying that. Naruto shook his head. No, I mean, the fact that you're reading a book for people from different realities is interesting, makes one wonder. Wonder what? The girl asked defensively. She was scrutinizing him with her gaze, looking for any hint of him being a threat. Unknown to the blonde, she was giving him the same once-over he gave her, like any other teenage girl. She'd be intrigued by the red hooded jacket over a wife-beater and jeans combo that showed off his physique. Wonder if she's studying for a philosophy CL or a history CL. He quickly covered while mentally patting himself on the back. Couldn't drive her off with the thought that she would read it because. Or I might actually be a dimensional traveler trying to blend in, the girl said with a small smirk. Naruto straightened and tensed as he looked around for an exit in the worst-case scenario. But that'd be stupid, wouldn't it? She replied with a shrug before closing the book and putting it back on the shelf. She turned and smiled at him, holding a hand out. Donna Troy. Smiling back and relaxing, Naruto took her hand and shook it. Nicholas J. Blood, but you can call me Naruto. That got a raised eyebrow from her. It always did. Chuckling, he pulled his hand back and explained. One of my birth parents were from Japan, or at least that's what my father thinks. You have more than two parents? Donna asked with confusion. They started to wander around the bookstore, with Naruto half-heartedly looking for the book he needed. Naruto nodded. I landed on my dad's lap with only this lace. He offered the pendant to her, which she took and examined with interest. Oh wow, it's beautiful. What do these characters on the back mean? They are kanji, written Japanese, for Naruto, hence my nickname, the blonde replied as she released the pendant. Rubbing the silver with one hand, Naruto smiled softly. It's probably the most important thing to me. Donna wasn't sure of what to say at that statement, and a long silence overcame them before Naruto asked, You want to get some coffee or something? Sure, replied the raven-haired girl in uncertainty. She was rewarded with a beaming smile from the blonde. Sweet, he replied before holding a book that he grabbed up. Let me just check this out and well go. Donna froze as she caught the title of the book he had, Demons, Dimensions, and Dust. A record of the known multiverse by Dr. Kent Fate. Her blue eyes focused on the back of the blonde's head while he checked out, making short conversation with the teen at the counter. Gotham City, 3:31 p.m. Naruto and Donna walked away from the coffee shop, with Naruto drinking a solid black cup and Donna enjoying a nice latte. The two had spoken about their families, Naruto about his father and Donna about her mother and elder sister. The blonde learned that Donna enjoyed playing sports and idolized her sister. She wanted to follow in her sister's footsteps, but wouldn't go into detail about what that meant when he asked. It didn't deter him though. Her dodging of the question piqued his curiosity and he planned on finding out, but not through shifty ways like that hero the question would. In turn, Naruto's own responses piqued Donna's curiosity. She had learned that he planned on studying further under his father, and opening his own private investigation unit was his end goal. He didn't reply specifically what kind of cases he and his father worked on, which only further drew Donna into the mystery that was Nicholas Naruto J. Blood. She also learned that he loved to eat ramen and watch the theater, something his father introduced to him early on. In fact, when asked whom he idolized the most, Donna wasn't all that surprised when he said it was his father, Jason Blood. They were currently walking down the street, just continuing their conversation, when Donna felt a tingle in the back of her head, a feeling she learned to dread over time, and looked apologetically at the teenage boy that was still chatting away about his friend Richard. She liked the blonde, and felt bad that he was about to be dragged into her problems. Hence, why she suddenly pushed him through a GL window to avoid the blast of energy that was aimed at her. Naruto dropped the book he was carrying and his coffee as he flew through the GL. The last thing he thought before impacting with the ground was, damn, Donna's strong. Donna rolled out of the way of a follow-up blast and glared at the woman with snow-white skin. The woman laughed evilly. Her ruby-red lips pulled back in a smile and her long raven locks flowed behind her with power. She wore a tantalizing red dress that clung to her hourglass figure and her pupil-less eyes locked on the shorter raven-haired girl. Donna, 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 tisk, tisk, tisk. The woman chided with a shake of her head. You should have let me kill the poor boy that was hovering around you. After all, you know how lives like this usually end. Could you handle it? Shut up. Donna cried as she flew at the older woman and cocked a fist back. The woman smiled insanely before catching her punch. She kneed the younger girl in the gut, knocking the wind out of her lungs, before she spun around midair and threw Donna back towards the ground. Donna impacted with a grunt of pain and created quite the crack in the street after doing so. She recovered relatively fast and just barely managed to roll out of the way of the woman's heel impaling her through the head. The woman's foot made a crater on impact and she grinned. Just hold still, Donna, this will only hurt forever, the woman assured with a tone sweeter than candy. Donna managed to push off the ground and started to fly away from the area, only for her ankle to be caught in a vice grip by the snow-white woman. The woman growled, "Oh, no you don't, you little bitch." Donna was whipped into a parked sedan, which caved in on her impact. The woman laughed haughtily as she watched Donna struggle to escape. "Oh my, I seem to have made quite the impact," giggled the woman. She raised a hand at Donna and prepared another magical blast. "I suppose I should end this now and be on my way to find you again, yes?" Donna's eyes widened and she increased her struggling at the threat. The woman laughed and fired off the blast. Donna watched as the mystical blast approached, hopeless not for the first time, but for the last time in this dimension. Hopefully she could stop the woman known as Dark Angel in the next dimension. "The blast of magic has no chance, obliterate by my lance." A familiar voice cried out as a red lance of magical energy shot out and intercepted Dark Angel's attack. Donna and Dark Angel looked at where the attack came from and found a scowling Naruto standing in a post-throwing position. He righted himself and cracked his before smirking. "What, you gonna give up already? Foolish boy. I'll kill you where you stand," Dark Angel sneered as she prepared another blast. Naruto shook his head and cupped his hands over his chest. "I think not," he replied before crying out, "Nabu, Lord of Fate, hear my plea. Act now and slow time for me." A golden ankh appeared behind the blonde and the helmet of Nabu appeared in the upper noose. The eyes of the helmet shone brightly and all around the blonde. People began to slow down. Dark Angel and Donna both also felt the effects, as their bodies began to slow down despite their minds comprehending how much faster the blonde moved. Naruto panted before he pulled his jacket off and tossed it aside. He took another deep breath before opening glowing red eyes. In a demonic voice, he spoke again. "Farewell to the comfort of skin and bone. Now I bathe myself in an unholy cone. Embrace the evil, lose the storm. It's time for this mortal to change his form. Allow me to help, Tales of Nine. Time for this human to become Vulpine." Before the women's eyes, Naruto stretched and grew into his alter ego. Uncrossing his arms from over his face, Vulp released a snarl after completing the transformation before he pointed at Dark Angel. "I got one rule, lady, and you just broke it. Now I am gonna break you. I'd like to see you try, little boy." Dark Angel jeered. She could feel Nabu's spell wearing off and was confident in her abilities. This teen was but another wannabe hero. A fly in her eyes, it would only be a second before she got back on track. That made Vulp growl. "Why am I always labeled little? First Etrigan, then bitch boy, and now you." Dark Angel laughed and sent another blast of magic at him, which he merely leapt over to avoid. He ran forward and leapt up in an attempt to tackle the woman to the ground. Dark Angel laughed mockingly as she floated above his reach. "What's wrong, little boy? Can't catch me?" she taunted. Vulp growled and pointed at her with 2 fingers on his right hand. "Flying bitch, your fun is over. Come over here like good ol' Rover." The Vulpine teen rhymed with a grin as a mystical chain shot out to wrap around her legs. Dark Angel's emissive eyes widened before she was pulled down from a strong jerk of Vulp's arm. Vulp's left hand curled into a fist and he let the punch fly. Dark Angel released a cry of pain as her cheek was hit by the demonic fox's fist. She flew back and split a parked car parallel to Donna's in half before colliding with a building's stone wall, creating a spiderweb of cracks from the impact. She groaned and sunk down to her knees while trying to recover. Vulp panted before grinning. "What's wrong? Can't keep up? You insolent little brat. Do you know who I am?" the enraged Dimension Hopper asked. Vulp put a hand on his chin before snapping his fingers. "I got it. You're Elvira. Ooh, what movie are we watching tonight, baby? Fool. I am the Dark Angel. I am your end." Dark Angel roared before flying at the teen. Vulp's ears twitched as he heard the groaning of steel and he grinned. "You know what else you are?" Vulp asked the woman. As she got closer, he ducked when Donna swung the car she was stuck in and sent Dark Angel flying through the wall she already cracked. With a grin, Vulp got back to his feet and answered his own question. "You're outta here. We've got to make sure she's down for the count." Donna said before flying through the hole her foe went through. Vulp sighed and looked at the sky. Can I have a day without people from other dimensions ruining it? It's not too much to ask, is it? The Fox asked no one in particular. He sighed when, as expected, there was no response. Vulp looked up when he heard Donna cry out in anger. He hurried to the hole and jumped through, entering what turned out to be a parking garage. Vulp looked around while calling out, Donna. Donna. I am fine. Donna replied as she landed in front of him with a defeated yet angry look on her face. She got away, damn it. Who was she? And why was she so interested in you? Vulp asked in concern. Donna glared at him. I've got my own questions, Fox man, she said as she rounded on him, pressing a finger against his chest. Donna asked, what's with this fur? Something you left out of your life story. I think we're both guilty of that, Donna Troy, Dimension Hopper, the Fox replied with a frown as he gently pushed the hand away. But before we get into that, we should probably explain what happened to the proper authorities. Yeah, like the cops will listen to a giant fox man, Donna snorted. Vulp chuckled and shook his head. No, they'd probably shoot first, he agreed before pointing at the shadows behind her. I am talking about him. I believe you have some explaining to do, Vulp, Batman said as he stepped out of the shadows. From the shadows emerged Robin. With a grin on the young sidekick's face he looked at the older Fox and asked, well, are you keeping her a secret from us, Vulp? Anything we should be worried about? Why should you care, Bird Boy? Vulp shot back in annoyance before waving at the Dark Knight. Hey Batman, what's up? What happened? Batman asked, his eyes narrowing behind the cowl as he stared at the new girl. Seeing that the Dark Knight wasn't in the mood for his antics, Vulp pointed at Donna and said, technically, it's her fault, so let's not tell my dad I basically had a fight so soon after stopping the bitch boy. I really don't need to be grounded for the rest of the summer. Batman's attention shifted to the gobsmacked Donna, who used a backhanded slap on Vulp's pointing arm with a growl. I didn't do anything. Dark Angel attacked us. Yeah, but you're the one that pushed me through the window. Vulp shot back as he rubbed his arm. Damn girl, that actually hurt. What do you bench, 350? Who are you? Batman insisted, getting the bickering teenager's attention back on him. And who is Dark Angel? I guess since you're here, I should try to lie, Donna replied with a frown before standing proudly. I am Donna Troy, proud warrior of the Mysteria and youngest daughter of Queen Hippolyta. That statement certainly got some raised eyebrows from the males around her. Batman thought over the possibility of such thing, but without Diana's input. He couldn't draw a solid conclusion. It didn't help that she did look a lot like Diana, same facial build and eye color. She also had the same don't think I want kick your attitude that Diana has occasionally when they would disagree on something. It was those arguments he tended to walk away with a silent thought of thank God I am still alive and in one piece. Granted, they hadn't had an argument like that for a few years, but still. Since when has Wonder Woman been an older sister? Robin asked after a moment of staring at the girl. This time it was Donna who looked shocked before she sighed and held her head. Great, another one of those dimensions, she grumbled to herself, though it was heard by the Dark Knight and Vulp. She looked at Batman and said, I'll tell you everything I can, but not here, and not to him. With the pretty older girl pointing at him, Robin looked put out. What's wrong with telling me? Am I gonna be concerted from the reveal? Aw god damn it, Vulp groaned as he slapped a hand over his eyes in exasperation. Seriously, Robin was an okay kid to hang with, but god damn his insistence on making words sound stupid. Not only was it confusing as hell, but for a mystic that focused on spoken words, it was really annoying, not to mention that he just managed to understand what the hell whelmed meant. I don't trust you, Donna replied before throwing a thumb over her shoulder at the Vulpine teen. Hell, I barely trust him anymore. The only reason I still somewhat do is because he saved my life. Batman's arched brow was visible by the widening of his right eye. You certainly don't talk like an Amazon. It's a long, long story, Donna replied with a frown as she looked at the caped crusader. So can we go somewhere else or are we going to stand here all day? Blood Manor, 4:03 p.m. After sending a protesting Robin back to MT Justice, Batman had decided to take them to Blood Manor, where Jason welcomed Donna with open arms after introducing himself and his profession. Gave Vulp a swift and hard smack upside the head, and glared at the Dark Knight before escorting them to the study. He left the room to make tea and dragged his protesting, still transformed, son with him. Donna snickered at the sight before sobering up when realizing that she was alone with Batman of all people, who she respected. While waiting, the two remained silent, Batman too busy trying to get a read on Donna while the self-proclaimed Amazon would rather not explain herself twice. After a few minutes, Naruto returned wearing a white t-shirt and a belt to hold his stretched-out pants around his waist. He sat down on a chair between Donna and Batman. The three waited another moment before Jason returned with a cup of tea in hand and then sat down. Now then, Jason began after he took a sip of his drink. Who are you, dear? My name is Donna Troy, warrior of the Mysteria and youngest daughter of Queen Hippolyta, Donna repeated with a sigh. Jason gave her an apologetic smile, but gestured for her to go on. The raven-haired girl did. This is the 472nd time I've woken up in a different dimension. Naruto blinked before looking at his dad with a grin, and here I thought you had an interesting origin story. Shush, Nicholas, Jason said, silencing the now scowling blonde, before looking at Donna. Please continue, Ms. Troy. I woke up a few blocks from the bookstore Naruto found me in, with these clothes set out and a letter from someone that used the letter L as a signature, Donna said as she continued her story. All the letter said it was time for me to step out of the shadows and into the light. I don't know what it means, but I know you would have asked anyway. She has you pegged, Batman, Naruto said in a jovial tone to the Dark Knight, who merely glared at him. Naruto sighed in agreement to be quiet and listened intently. Just because he wanted to add his 2 cents, he got glared at or called by his real name. He thought he finally got his dad to quit it with the Nicholas thing. Anyway, this not being my first time waking up in a body that wasn't completely my own. I searched for a place where I could get all the information I wanted without too much attention. So rather than using the internet and risk being traced, I went to a small-time occult bookstore, Donna explained after glaring at Naruto for his interruption. All this was doing was giving Dark Angel the time she needs to recover from her defeat, so she needed to hurry up. I started to read and before I knew it, this lug found me and chatted me up. We went out for a drink and then Dark Angel attacked us. I pushed him through a window and almost died again. When he saved me, he can tell you what happened after that. What? Hey, wait a second, I never agreed to that, Naruto argued. Besides, I was out of it for a good 5 minutes before someone pushed through a window. How was I supposed to know you were Homo Magi? Donna countered with a frown. You should be happy, you know, you're the first Vulp I've ever met. That's not really surprising considering his origins, Jason said, deterring Donna from continuing a banter with his son. But now I am curious. Who is this Dark Angel? Describe her to me. Think Morgan Le Fay, but pasty-skinned with black hair and ruby-red lips, Naruto cut in, sultry dressed and very talented in magic blasts. And she calls herself Dark Angel? Jason asked. Naruto nodded, making his father hum and steeple his fingers. After a moment of silence, Jason looked at Batman. You should contact Diana. She doesn't have to. This is more than just a clone. Batman, Jason interrupted the Dark Knight with a frown. This is a cross-dimensional murder that continues to result in reincarnation. If we let this pattern continue, sooner or later the Amazon known as Donna Troy will cease to exist in all realities. Naruto and Donna felt their eyes bug out while Batman remained collected. After a moment, Batman raised a hand to the side of his head. John, contact Diana. Have her Zeta to the Blood Estate ASAP. Will do, but we have pressing matters to attend to and need you here, John's voice replied over the comlink. Batman nodded and looked at Jason. The former knight nodded and waved. You do what you must, I'll do what I can. Goodbye, Jason. Naruto, the Dark Knight said before he vanished via Zeta beam to the watchtower. The 2 members of the Blood family turned to their new guest when they heard a soft rumble. Donna blushed and looked at the ground before asking quietly, "See, could I have something to eat?" Blood Manor, July 27th, 7:45 a.m. Donna stretched and slowly sat up. Yawning as she did so, Jason had insisted she stay with them for the night and offered her one of the many spare rooms. Naruto had given her an old shirt of his to sleep in, seeing as her clothes weren't made with that in mind. She looked down at the blue t-shirt that fell a few inches below her hips, covering her underwear-clad nether regions, and blushed when she realized how well she slept with it on. She then heard an audible boom from somewhere downstairs and she felt the whole room shake. Throwing her covers off and literally flying out of her room once the quake stopped, Donna soon tracked the sounds of fighting to a door in the main hall. A voice suspiciously familiar to Naruto's let out a cry and a deep roar was heard. It was enough to make her sure of her choice to break the door down. What she stumbled upon made her eyes widen in shock. Naruto, in the form of Vulp, was fighting against a short, yellowish humanoid wearing medieval armor. The two were currently trading blows and the shorter being was pushing his alt. Fight back. Put your all into it. Prove to me what a demon you truly are. Etrigan snarled. Unaware of their witness arching a brow, he ducked an overextended swing and wrapped his arms around the taller demon's limb before tossing his Vulpine student over his shoulder. Vulp collided with a set of armor and knocked it down, making Etrigan grin. Perhaps you should don some armor, whelp. That one just flat out sucked, Etrigan. Vulp growled as he pushed the 14th or 15th century armor off of his body and to the side. The Vulpine teen stood and held his hand out at the demon. Right now you are a pain, so here's some vengeance from the drain. A pipe behind the son of Belial glowed with mystical energy before ripping itself off the wall and spraying Etrigan with water. Vulp snickered as his mentor gurgled and fought off the liquid alt. Brushing himself off, Vulp chuckled out, "You're all washed up, Etrigan. I thought you'd have seen that one coming a mile away." "You little." Etrigan was cut off as the water continued to alt him. Eventually, the shorter demon raised his cape to shield himself and incanted, "Evil appliance, quit your alt. Turn your attention to the one at fault." Vulp's eyes widened and he cried out as the pipe turned from his mentor onto him. Etrigan shook himself a little before smirking at his ward and approached the teen. "Turnabout is fair play, Vulp." "Call, URK. It. Gurgle, off." Vulp cried out as he was drenched by the never-ending hose. Etrigan's smirk turned into a flat-out grin that looked evil enough for Donna to step in. The interdimensional girl gave a war cry before flying right at a bewildered Etrigan, who turned to face the source of the sound. 2 Amazonian punches sent the demon through the wall of the impromptu sparring area. Donna immediately turned to help Vulp, flying to the pipe that was spraying him and crushing it shut by the base. Vulp lowered his arms and coughed a good few cups of water out of his mouth before looking at his savior. His red eyes widened and he managed to get out, Donna? Come on, we won't have long before it." She was cut off as a large ball of flame exited the hole she had thrown Etrigan in. Vulp grabbed her by the shoulders and pulled her with him out of the way. Releasing the raven-haired girl's shoulders, he looked her in the eyes and pleaded, "You didn't attack him, did you? Please say no." "He was attacking you, wasn't he?" Donna returned with confusion written on her face. That's what it looked like from her point of view, and in the back of her mind she wondered where Jason was. Vulp groaned, "Great, and here I thought I'd finally get through a spar without pissing Etrigan off." Etrigan? That name. Oh, Donna paled as she recalled exactly who Etrigan was and his connection to Jason Blood from one of her longer past lives. Vulp gave her an odd look before he looked up and his ears went back. Etrigan was standing in the middle of the room growling and holding a hand above his head. After releasing a small whimper of fear, Vulp stood in front of Donna and extended both hands. "Hellish flame from the demonic warrior. You'll get no farther than my barrier." A giant fireball collided with the glowing red circle that had a diameter of 7 feet, tired from the immense drain the demonic shield had. Vulp panted and lowered his arms before calling out, "I concede. You win, Etrigan." Etrigan lowered his prepared fists and snarled at Donna, "You, stay out of rooms with locked doors." "Cut her some slack," Vulp defended with a frown as Donna's head lowered from the scolding. She woke up in a different place and heard explosions. It's not her fault she stumbled on his training. "I told you I should NT try to use the Bijudama without tails out. There will be times when the enemy won't allow you to bring them out." Etrigan growled back in response. He was ready to chew into both teenagers before the doorbell rang. Etrigan looked at the stairway, growling at the sight of the destroyed door, and growled once more when there was another ring. Looking at his student, the demon snarled, "You, clean up the mess." "Fine." Vulp groaned out before his ear twitched at another ring of the bell. "You gonna get that?" "Smart little, yes. You, girl, get dressed," Etrigan growled before storming towards the stairs and muttering under his breath. As he reached the top of them, he began his rhyme to turn back to Jason Blood. Vulp looked at a slightly flushed Donna with a grin. "So, black lace, eh?" He made a matching hole in the opposite wall after Donna hit him. Ow. Blood Estate, 7:55 a.m. Diana Prince aka Wonder Woman stood outside of the doors to the Blood Estate, waiting patiently for Batman's friend Jason Blood to open his door. She had met Jason once before while accompanying Bruce to the annual Gotham Police Ball a year ago. He was a charming individual as was his son, Nicholas J. Blood. She was often reminded of Barry Allen when interacting with Nicholas Blood, who insisted she call him Naruto. "Ah, Diana, come in," Jason greeted with a smile as he opened the door. "Always a pleasure to see you." "Jason," Diana greeted with a nod as she walked in. "Bruce said you had something interesting to show me." Jason frowned and asked while shutting the door, "Did he say something or someone?" "What do you mean?" Diana inquired with a frown on her face. Jason sighed and shook his head. Nothing, just a small spat coming to mind," the former knight replied as he began leading her to the study. Diana took the time to look at the pictures along the wall as they walked. One had a blonde toddler smiling at the camera. Absent of all clothes save for a diaper, his cheeks had 3 faint whisker-like marks, something Diana noticed immediately. "Is this Nicholas?" she asked, stopping and picking the picture up. Jason stopped in his stride and turned to look at what she held. The former knight smiled paternally. "Ah, I remember that day," he said in reminiscence. "I was testing a new camera and the little rascal ran down the stairs in his soggy diaper, smiling at me without a care in the world, something he's retained for the past 18 years. "The soggy diapers are his attitude?" Diana asked with a smirk. Jason barked out a laugh and they continued their journey to the study, where Diana could hear a male voice talking about some sort of fire. "Before we go in, Diana, I have to ask you something." His words made the Amazonian princess look at him curiously. Do you have a biological sister? No, I am my mother's only daughter, Diana replied with furrowed brows. Jason sighed in disappointment. I was afraid you would say that, the man replied before grabbing the door handle and smiling at her apologetically. The reason I ask is because, you do now. What do you, great Hera? Diana became speechless as Jason opened the door and revealed what could easily be her twin had she been, physically, a few years younger, seated next to the laid-back son of Jason Blood. Naruto and Donna looked up at Diana's exclamation and the former grinned. Hey Diana, how's it going? Diana didn't answer but went on the defensive and clenched her fists. Who are you? Donna stood and smiled at the woman. My name is Donna Troy, I am your sister. Diana stared at Donna for another moment longer before looking at Jason with narrowed eyes. We need to talk in private, now. Of course, Jason replied with a nod. He looked at the slightly hurt teen and his son with a small smile. We'll be right back. The door shut and Donna slowly sat down. Naruto saw her disappointment and put a hand on her shoulder in support, getting her to look at him. Grinning slightly, the blonde said, Hey, don't worry about it. This is a big reveal and Diana just needs to hear your story from a reliable source. I am unreliable? Donna asked as her fist clenched, her heart aching at being brushed aside. There had been other dimensions where Donna wasn't a known Amazon, but in those Diana had always welcomed her with open arms. Why was this one so different? Naruto's grip tightened and he spoke up again. That's not what I meant. Think of how you would feel if you were in her shoes. She needs to talk to an adult and find out the story, or what she can get from my dad. Just don't worry about it. She'll be ecstatic to see you soon enough. How are you so nonchalant about this? Donna asked as he released her shoulder and sat back. Naruto grinned and pointed at his cheek, which shimmered away and revealed 3 whiskers on each side. When you've got a demon in your gut and an immortal father, you don't really get shocked by much anymore. Hell, when I figured out my godfather was someone important to Gotham City, I simply asked if I could ride in his car. Who's your godfather? Inquired the Dimension Hopper. Naruto's grin didn't die. Batman. Oh, the look on Donna's face was priceless in Naruto's opinion. Speechless and amazed blended so well on her face. Inwardly he wondered how she would take the news that he too was from another dimension, but that wouldn't be revealed just yet. Had to keep the girl on her toes. After all, Batman is your godfather? She questioned. Naruto nodded. Batman? Yep. You're serious? Donna couldn't wrap her head around the cold-caped crusader being anyone's godfather outside of the Batman family. Heck, she had trouble wrapping her head around Batman having a son before she left that dimension behind. Why would I lie to you? Naruto countered before looking at the door. They're coming back. The door opened once again and Diana entered with Jason close behind her. He went to his chair and gave Naruto a glance out of the corner of his eye. The blonde nodded and kept his whiskers out while crossing his middle and ring fingers. He had sensed it just as his father had taught him to, the feeling of an approaching magic. Diana stood in front of the now standing Donna, being a good half of a head taller than the dimension-hopping girl. She then wrapped her arms around the girl in a hug, making Donna freeze before she slowly returned the gesture. Diana felt tears form as she recalled the girl's story and whispered, You're more than welcome to be my sister. Donna closed her eyes and embraced the feeling of acceptance once again, a smile appearing on her face. The two, in their hug, missed the blood stepping out of the room and locking it behind them. Naruto and Jason calmly walked to the front door, Naruto's hand still in the position he had forced it into before he asked, Think she'll stop if we defeat her? I can only hope, Jason replied to his son. He grabbed a cane from the umbrella holder next to the door. I can't guarantee anything, but I will not let this monstrous event continue. Works for me, Naruto replied as his hand started to glow a bright red and he eyed the cane. Taking the Ripper, isn't it a bit overkill? If she's been doing this for nearly 500 dimensions, then she'll have more tricks up her sleeve. She won't underestimate you again, Jason replied as he grabbed the handle of the door and slowly turned it. So let me handle it, you stay here and keep the ward up. You got it, Dad, the blonde replied with a nod. Jason pulled the door open and rushed out of the estate. Gone. Gone the form of man. He cried as he started to burst into flame. Arise the demon Etrigan. Fully combusted, the flaming figure shrank and the cane in his hand morphed. As Etrigan finished his transformation, the cane became a disturbingly gothic broadsword that the demon easily wielded in one hand. Etrigan laughed as he finished his transformation. Come out wench from where you're hide. Time for my Ripper to see your insides. Dark Angel revealed herself and wielded a sword with a dark handle. She glared at Etrigan, who sneered in response, before pointing at him. You are not my quarry, demon. Stay out of my way and I'll let you live. Big talk for a woman that hunts a child across the multiverse, Etrigan growled back as he raised his blade. Blood wants me to tell you that Donna Troy is now under our protection. So be it, now die. Dark Angel cried as she flew at the demon with her blade ready to strike. Etrigan parried her blade and their emissive eyes locked. Etrigan's red and her white narrowed as they struggled against each other. Slowly, Etrigan started to overpower Dark Angel and he allowed a sadistic grin to appear on his face. "This battle is not in your favor, witch," the demon said to her. "You'd best retreat while you still can." "Never," Dark Angel cried out before slipping away from Etrigan, sacrificing her blade in the process. The snow-white-skinned woman sneered and pointed at him. "Die." A bright ball of magic shot from her finger. Etrigan sneered and used his ripper to deflect the attack. "Weak." Dark Angel growled at the dismissal and put both of her hands out, palms facing the demon. "Eradicate." A barrage of mystical blasts fired at Etrigan, who jumped over them with agility and acrobatics one wouldn't expect from his build. The demon sneered and stabbed Ripper into the ground, both hands on the blade's handle. He grinned and spoke in a way that made her spine tingle in fear. He rhymed, "The Ripper my blade, time to prove your worth, show the witch your power through the earth." Etrigan pulled his blade out of the ground as though he were swinging upwards. A portion of the ground split in a cracked manner as it headed for Dark Angel, who watched with horror in her eyes as the ground beneath her shot up in a spear. Dark Angel dodged out of the way only to be hit in the side by a fireball sent from Etrigan's mouth. Another earth spear shot up, nearly piercing her through the front of her stomach, only for Dark Angel to narrowly avoid it. Etrigan growled and threw Ripper at her, only for her to dodge once again. "Let's see you dodge this," Naruto muttered as he held his free hand out towards her and recited, "Ground the woman through her weight, let's multiply her M by 8. Dark Angel felt her body become heavier and struggled to remain in the air and away from Etrigan's blade. She felt her eyes widen as she started to plummet towards the ground. There was an earth-shaking impact strong enough to make Naruto stumble and drop his ward, alerting the Amazons inside Blood Estate that something was going on outside. Donna and Diana busted through the door, the lock ignored by their superior strength, rushing to the front door only to be stopped by Naruto. He raised both hands and called out, "My home is in trouble, there's a threat about. To stop her ill make a bubble and keep her out." A large red energy sphere covered the Blood's home, keeping both Amazonian women inside while Etrigan took the hint and grinned. The demon once again stabbed the Ripper into the ground, but cupped his hands at his chin. Dark Angel, who was struggling to get up, practically became clear when Etrigan began to rhyme. "Threatening a child under my protection, I deem thee unable to accept correction. The fires of hell will end it now. Say goodbye to this world, you worthless sow." Etrigan took a deep breath before spewing molten hot lava into his hands. Once his hands were full of the lava, his sadistic grin widened as Dark Angel's struggling increased. He balled the lava in his hands like it was dough before lifting it above his head. Etrigan began to glow and started to laugh. "What's he doing?" Diana asked the whiskered youth. Naruto glanced at her and she saw sweat trickle down the side of his face, as well as slits where round pupils should be. "He's sending her away," was all Naruto said on the matter before returning his attention to the matter at hand. Etrigan laughed as the small ball in his hand began to grow until it was large enough to rival a small truck in size. His eyes shone brightly before he threw it at where Dark Angel was stuck. The woman released a loud scream as the ball struck her before her form was hidden by the bright golden lava. The ball began to grow until it touched the shield Naruto had put up, getting a scream of pain from the teen. Before it started to shrink, it shrank until it had become the size of a pearl. Naruto dropped his shield at Etrigan's nod and fell to his knees. The curse he had used while trying to keep a specific warding spell up had drained him to half his usual magic, chakra reserves, and that shield drained the rest of it down to the bare minimum he needed to stay awake. Anymore and he could have gone into a coma like he had when he was 10. Etrigan grinned as he exited the crater where the pearl rested, holding the sphere out to Donna once he got closer. In his deep voice, he told the girl, "I believe this needs to be under your watch, seeing as she's your problem." "Gee, thanks," murmured the raven-haired girl as she accepted the pearl. She looked at it and nearly dropped it when she saw a screaming Dark Angel inside. Looking at the demon, she found him grinning sadistically. "I would like to thank you for making Blood call me out," Etrigan said once more. "The only reason that I have been let out lately is to teach the whelp, here." "Fakku, Etrigan," Naruto panted from his place on his knees. Once he had recovered enough to stand, he looked at Donna and Diana. Looking between the two he asked with a grin, "So, can I come to the Mischira to see Queen Hippolyta's face when you tell her she has another daughter? I've got $20 that say it's going to be priceless." Naruto yawned as he sat on a bench just outside the location of the Tower of Fate. He was wearing his usual gear comprising of a wife-beater, hoodie, sandals and torn jeans. Try as his father might to get him to dress appropriately when going out, Naruto would refuse and retort with the excuse that his transformation would ruin his clothes anyway. He was asked by the Justice League via Batman to check on one of the original members, Dr. Fate aka Kevin Nelson. Naruto had no qualms about doing so, seeing as he had felt that something was wrong with the Lord of Order's presence, or lack thereof, for a good while now. While he thought about the missing Sorcerer Supreme, the blonde picked a fast food cup up and slurped some of his soda through the straw. "Could you please have some sort of manners?" Donna asked, glaring at him from the corner of her eyes. She had just returned from some training with the Amazons and wore earrings similar to Wonder Woman, but other than that, her attire was the same. Naruto had asked her how the queen reacted and was disappointed when Donna told him she took it well. In reality, there was a fainting incident that was sworn never to be spoken of, and then a welcoming motherly hug. She had come along to act as a sort of suppressant against Naruto's demonic side. As it had been acting up as October neared, it was small bursts of anger, but one time at their school when he was stopping a bully he was sucker punched across the face. The poor soul that threw the punch found himself punched halfway across the blacktop, thankfully only resulting in a broken nose. Jason had given her some experimental suppressing runes to use in case he lost himself and went further than needed. "I do have manners," Naruto replied as he looked at her with a cocky smile. "I just choose not to use them." "Pig," accused the Amazonian. It seemed as though she had taken some of the conversations Queen Hippolyta had with her to heart. "No arguments here, Wonder Girl," teased the blonde. He got a light punch in the arm for his efforts. "I told you I am not using a cape name," Donna corrected with a frown while the blonde rubbed his arm. "Ow, geez, take a joke," whined the blonde before he looked to a familiar group of approaching teens. There they are. As Naruto walked towards them, Donna lingered behind, watching the interaction with interest. Batman argued that it should be an undercover mission, but Naruto said that it would be pointless to be undercover in the presence of the Sorcerer Supreme. Naruto had gone on to explain to Batman that the group should be arriving in their costumes, which they all did, because if Kent Nelson was missing for a long time, there was a good chance it wasn't because he was meditating. "What's up, guys?" he asked as he stood in front of them with a giant grin on his face. He looked over the group and frowned. "Where's Rob?" "He was called in to work with Batman tonight," Aqualad replied while offering a hand. "So you're going to help us once again?" Grabbing the Atlantean's hand in a strong shake, Naruto grinned as he replied, "You got it. Bat's called in another favor, though he didn't have to. I've been worried about him for a while now. How ya been, Aqualad?" "I am good, honored to be chosen to check on the Sorcerer Supreme," Aqualad said with a smile. Naruto grinned, prepared to be amazed. Then, he greeted the others in a similar manner, though he and Kid Flash forced smiles when they stood across from each other. When they shook hands, Naruto crushed the redhead's hand in his own, magical enhancement for the win. Kid Flash's forced smile and laugh afterwards got a smirk from the new member. The girl was either 15 or 16 and wore a forest green outfit comprised of a sleeveless shirt that showed off her midriff and drew attention to her chest with an arrow emblem, a green mask that allowed a small mane of a ponytail to be seen, tight green pants the same shade as her shirt, darker green combat boots and gloves to protect her hands and feet. Over her shoulder was a quiver with equally green arrows. "And who are you?" Naruto asked. "Speedy 2-0. Name's Artemis," the girl replied with a small frown while holding her hand out. Naruto greeted her like he did Miss Martian, taking her hand gently and kissing her knuckles. The boys on the team, save for Kid Flash, chuckled at his antics while Donna rolled her eyes. The archer flushed red before quickly retracting her hand, earning a laugh from the blonde as he introduced himself. "And I am Nicholas J. Blood, but you can call me Naruto," the older teen replied before looking back at his companion. "And this is my friend, Donna. Donna Troy, youngest daughter of Queen Hippolyta and Princess of Themyscira," Donna said as she stepped forward. Naruto took notice of the others' reactions and laughed. The team looked completely shocked at the presence of an Amazonian princess, but Kid Flash's shock quickly turned into a sly grin. "So what's a pretty girl like you hanging out with a guy like him?" Kid Flash asked, reappearing next to her with a grin on his face. "Why not hang out with a real hero, like me?" "Because she likes guys whose attention spans last longer than 5 seconds, Naruto countered with a roll of his eyes. Kid Flash glared at him while Artemis and Donna smirked in amusement. He looked at Aqualad. "You got the key." "Here," the Atlantean said as he handed the key over. Naruto nodded and led the team over to where the Tower of Fate was. After using the key, the tower shimmered into existence. "Impressive," Donna mused aloud. "So the sorcerer hides it along the rifts of time and space." "That's I am right," Naruto interjected before Kid Flash could say anything. The blonde wasn't going to have the speedster mess this up. As a sorcerer himself, Naruto saw drive, Fate as a personal hero, right up there with his father, and he wouldn't let some skeptic ember him when he was on an official job for the League. Naruto took a few steps back from the tower door and cupped his hands around his mouth, calling out, "Hey, Mr. Nelson." Before the team and Donna's eyes, an elderly man shimmered into existence. He had slicked back gray hair and blue eyes. He wore a black suit and stood upright with the help of a cane. Greetings. The apparition greeted with a smile. You have entered with a key, but the tower does not recognize you. Please state your purpose and intent. I've got this, Kid Flash said as he strolled up to the hologram, brushing past Naruto. We're true believers here to find Dr. Fate. No, you idiot, Naruto cried out, but it was too late. The apparition's face turned stern before it vanished and the ground below them opened up to reveal a pool of lava. The members of the team and Naruto immediately began to fall. Donna had immediately started to fly as the ground opened up, but as she flew down to grab one of the other members, she was pulled into the gravitational pull. Megan! Aqualad cried to the Martian for help. Unfortunately, Miss Martian was struggling just to slow herself down, having trouble maintaining altitude. I am so hot. You certainly are, Kid Flash chirped with a grin. Wally. Artemis snapped with a glare. What? I am inches away from death. I am entitled to speak my mind, retorted the speedster. If we die, I just want you to know I hate you, West, Naruto hollered over the sound of the rushing wind. He held his hands down and focused on a good 10 feet before him before he spoke. Before we fall to our death, I use what may be my last breath. As we quickly approach our doom, I create a floor without a room. A red glow appeared before the group before they landed on a see-through platform just large enough to hold them all. The teens all grunted as they impacted with the created ground. Both Aqualad and Miss Martian were sweating profusely, falling victim to the heat that surrounded them. Naruto was straining to keep the ground above them active, and thus was forced to listen to Artemis chew the speedster out. Now how are we going to get out of this? The blonde mage heard his fellow blonde ask the red-headed boy. Why are you asking me? It's just some holographic images with a strong conducto. Wally was cut off as Donna pulled out a chunk of the rock to her right and tossed it over the edge. The large boulder started to dissolve, and the two young women looked at the skeptical speedster. Kid Flash chuckled sheepishly. So it's real lava. I know tons of supervillains that pay to have it installed. Not the point, Naruto grunted as he remained in his position kneeling on the platform. He looked at Superboy. Can you jump out of here? Not this close to your ward, Superboy said with a shake of his head before looking at Donna. Can't she just fly us out of here? No, I am not strong enough to make multiple trips like that before Naruto loses control of his spell, Donna explained before glaring at Wally. Congratulations, idiot. You've just made the strongest person here run at half efficacy. Ah, it can't be that bad, Wally said with a grin. I mean, he is a wizard, right? All of us that use energy have pools of said energy within us, you dumb. Naruto snarled as sweat poured down his back from the added heat. This spell is draining me as we speak, and if I run out before we get out, well, I hope you're ready for the worst sunburn of your life. Okay, so magic isn't all-powerful, Kid Flash shrugged, ignoring the muttered curses from the strained blonde before he started to run in a circle. I can get us out of here in no time flat. He ran to the nearest wall and put his foot on it, resulting in a sudden hiss. Kid Flash yelped and bounced off while holding his foot. The red boot was slightly melted and still steaming. He was met with glares from those with enough power to do so. He immediately looked at Donna Troy and asked, "Why didn't you warn me it was so hot?" "I wanted to see if you were stupid enough to try it," she admitted, "and I wasn't affected because of my goddess's blessings." Jealous, Naruto mumbled, getting a smirk from Superboy. An idea hit him and he shouted out, "Ignore the idiot. We were sent here by Red Tornado and Batman to check on Dr. Fate." "Hey!" Wally indignantly cried out. He wasn't an idiot. Two metal slabs slammed shut over the lava and Naruto sighed in relief before dropping his spell. The team and their two guests fell 5 feet before hitting the steel, allowing Naruto to fall flat on his face with a few pants, pushing himself to roll onto his back. Naruto mumbled, "Thank God for technicalities." "Technicalities?" The team repeated in confusion before Megan palmed herself on the head. "Hello, Megan," the Martian said before explaining. Wally stated a purpose but not an intent. Naruto just happened to give an intent while also giving a valid purpose. Artemis narrowed her eyes and stalked over to a confused Kid Flash before pulling her fist back. Donna caught her arm before it could collide with the distracted teen's cheek, making Artemis glare at her. "Why'd you stop me?" she asked. "If it wasn't for this idiot we could have already been on our way out of here by now." "What? How is this my fault?" Wally asked. Naruto pushed himself to his feet and soon joined the two girls, nodding at Donna to release Artemis. The archer pulled her hand back and rubbed her wrist, giving the Amazonian a weary glance, before turning her wrath back on Kid Flash. "You had to go and show off," Artemis snapped, poking him in the chest. "Your attempt to impress Megan nearly got us all killed. If you had let someone that, oh I don't know, actually deals with magic speak to that guard, we wouldn't be down our team leader." Kid Flash looked at a heavily sweating and weakened Aqualad with a bit of guilt before a frowning Megan earned his attention. You don't believe in magic?" Seeing as the jig was up, Kid Flash threw his arms up. "No. I don't believe in magic because there's no proof. The only reason people believed in magic is because they hadn't discovered science. I can scientifically explain any magical event we witness. That lava pit, that was a booby trap, and right now this Nelson is watching us fight and having a good laugh at our expense. Aqualad's magic is bioelectricity and Superman's weakness is to some energy not categorized yet. In short, magic is a giant load of bulls urk. Naruto had had enough of Kid Flash's slander and had wrapped his hands around his. Glowing red eyes glared into the choking teen and Naruto bared his teeth. His father studied for millennia after Merlin had cursed him. Kent Nelson had solely been defending the world from various demons and monsters that wished to control it through magical means. It was people like Kid Flash that made mages and mystics outcasts, forcing them to hide their heroics from society lest they be trialed to witch hunts. Let me tell you something, Hole, Naruto snarled, shaking the teen as he held him above the ground. You don't have to believe in magic. You don't have to believe in God. For all I fucking care, you can believe in a giant chicken that laid the egg the world popped out of, but don't ever, and I mean ever, call magic a load of bull in front of me. It'll pull your soul out of your body so fast your uncle would be jealous. Do you understand me? Kid Flash was too busy choking to respond, causing Donna and Superboy to grab his hands and forcibly pry them away. The rest of the team watched as Donna spun around, slipping her left leg behind his own and pushing him to the metal ground, earning a loud clang for their efforts. Straddling the blonde and holding his hands above him with one hand, Donna reached into her back pocket and pulled out a small piece of paper, looking into the blood-red eyes with apologetic blue ones of her own. Sorry, Naruto, she apologized before pressing the small piece of paper into his head. The paper in Donna's hand sparked with electricity, soon covering Naruto and causing him to cry out in pain. The light show died away and Naruto turned his head to the side, unconscious from the attack. Donna peeled the paper off his head, the image once on it peeling away from his skin with a nasty burn as a reminder. What the hell was that? Wally coughed out as he rubbed his. He tried to kill me. Donna snapped her attention to the redhead and walked over to him before slapping him across the face. She grabbed him by the front of his suit and lifted him high above her, causing him to ask what he did. Narrowing her eyes, Donna said, You antagonized him while he was weak, giving his demonic side enough leeway to push through. If I wasn't here, all of you would be dead. She dropped him to the ground, earning another metal clang. The steel parted just enough to drop the group to a snowy ground. Naruto's skin connecting with the white powder was enough stimulation to wake him up. The blonde sat up with a gasp before leaning forward and coughing up charred blood. He heard the blonde archer talking nearby, as well as the skeptic arguing his point, before noticing a golden glowing staff hovering in front of him. Glancing at the argument between Artemis and Kid Flash, which had everyone else's attention, Naruto looked back at the staff. He wrapped his hand around it, thinking it was merely there to help him to his feet. Much to his surprise, he suddenly disappeared in a golden flash of light. Noticing the flash, Megan turned around to see Naruto disappear, calling his name out as he did so. The others turned and saw nothing, making Donna groan and rub her temples. She looked at Kid Flash, who was pretty miffed about being targeted for just voicing what he thought was the truth, and scowled. Pray whoever took him had good intentions, Kid Flash, Donna began, putting emphasis on his name and making him frown in return. Or you will be the one to explain to Mr. Blood why his son went missing. Both Aqualad and Superboy took a big step away from Kid Flash. They knew that if Wally had to explain that Naruto went missing due to his skepticism to the second strongest magician on the planet, he would get a very rough wake-up call. Naruto reappeared in a room where a familiar Lord of Chaos was floating to the side of a glowing platform while a known hack electrocuted Kent Nelson. The hack was Abracadabra, a man that used science to replicate spells. He was tall, thin and possibly Italian with the amount of hair that was on his chest and arms. He dressed in a poet blouse. There's no way that's a shirt, Naruto thought to himself. And tight black pants tucked into black boots. A gold chain hung around his, not having a true purpose other than to draw attention to his chest. Naruto clutched the cane tightly and spun it between his fingers before leaping forward. Klarion took notice of the blonde and scowled. His warning for his partner to look out was ignored. The blonde slammed the cane in his grip into the face of Abracadabra, making him fall back as well as cry out before holding two fingers in Clarion's direction. In the name of the king of old, make the chaotic boy feel cold. A blue beam shot from Naruto's fingertips and struck Klarion, freezing him solid. The ice quickly started to chip and Abracadabra started to stand, electricity dancing across his hands. Naruto slipped a hand under Kent's armpit, saying quietly, Mr. Nelson, first of all an honor, but if you wouldn't mind getting us out of here? My cane, the old man said, getting empowered from its presence. He raised the cane above them and chanted in a lost language before the two vanished once more. They reappeared shortly afterwards in an elevator, taking a few deep breaths. Kent Nelson then smiled at the blonde. My name is Kent Nelson. Thank you for saving me, mister, he inquired, offering a hand to the teen. Nicholas J. Blood, Naruto said, returning the handshake with a grin. You know me as Naruto. Ah, So you're the boy with a demon in his gut, Kent asked with a smile, still causing you trouble? Only recently, as we grow closer to October, Naruto explained. Pressing a hand to his stomach, he looked back up with a serious face. Why hadn't you called the League for help? My boy, don't you think I would have if I could? Kent asked with a sigh. I am not as spry as I used to be. Klarion got the drop on me with abracadabra. Man, I was really hoping that wasn't abracadabra, Naruto groaned as he crossed his arms. I hate that guy, I really hate that guy. He helps skeptics prove that magic isn't real to society. The curse of a mage is to remain on the sidelines of a battle, Kent said as he pulled a pocket watch out and smiled, but the benefits are the security we gain. He offered the watch to the blonde, who took it gently in his hand, before whistling and grinning coyly at the older man. Well, so the old dog had a few tricks? Kent laughed at the turn of phrase and took the watch back. Yes I did, Inza was my Spitfire, she was my reason to take Nabu off and do what I could without. She would slap me silly if I did something foolish. That was her power. She could control the Sorcerer Supreme through his host, because of our love, and if that isn't true magic, I don't know what is. I know a kid who could do well to meet you, Naruto snorted as the elevator doors opened. They walked out to stand next to a giant bell and seconds later, the team and Donna Troy fell from thin air. Naruto gaped at what he just saw before looking at Kent, who chuckled at the gleam in the boy's eye. That was a trans-dimensional door. Dad doesn't even know how to do that ward. Can you teach me? He asked excitedly like a child. He didn't pay any mind to the fact that his wounds had healed and that the group of teens was now staring in his direction. All he cared about was learning that awesome ability. Oh, the traps he could set or the pranks he could do with such a thing a beauty, not to mention it would really help with his fights against the dark forces or supervillains if you must get technical. Naruto. Donna called out in disbelief, getting the blue-eyed teen to look at her in confusion. Where did you go? Well, technically, I didn't go anywhere, Naruto answered, looking at an amused Kent Nelson. I stayed in the tower. That's not what I meant and you know it, Donna snapped with a frown on her face as she stood across from the teen. You just vanished and left us to wander around in the snow. If we hadn't spotted that door we might have never gotten out. I am surprised the skeptic even made it through the door, Naruto said as he looked at the glaring kid flash. I mean, normally they're supposed to be invisible to all those who do. Oh, my God. Even at their core, some people really do want to believe, Mr. Blood, Kent said with a chuckle before his face grew stern. We haven't got much time, Klarion and Abra are right here, Klarion announced as he and Abracadabra appeared in a flash of light. Naruto and Donna fell into fighting stances while the team looked at their new opponents with disbelief. Oh man, not this wacko again. Wally groaned before running forward. You're going down, delusional boy. TCH, skeptics, Abra. Klarion called. The scientific magician grinned and threw a device down in front of Klarion. A giant force field came to life and Wally groaned as he slammed into it. Kid Flash stumbled backwards before grinning. Okay, all fake, Kid Flash started. Let's see you do that again. I don't have to, Abracadabra said with a smirk as he shot a blast at Wally, sending him back to his team. The other members of the team helped the speedster back to his feet and glared at their new foes. Superboy rushed forward and engaged Abracadabra, soon backed by the rest of his team. Staring at the Lord of Chaos, Naruto narrowed his eyes before smirking and dropping his stance. He was wondering why Klarion was making Abracadabra do all the work when it suddenly clicked in his head. I can't believe it, he chuckled out, gaining the remaining people in the room's attention. You're still recovering from controlling Etrigan. That's why you promised that idiot you'd give him powers if he helped you. Silence, you little fox, Klarion snapped as his magic flared. I have no need to fight when others will do it for me. You're saving up for when Nabu drains himself against the fake here, Naruto continued, looking behind him and nodding at Kent. The old man nodded back and took a few subtle steps towards the bell while Naruto continued to speak. You're a cowardly Lord of Chaos, aren't you? I said silence. Klarion barked, firing a magical blast at Naruto. The blonde shifted into a stance and deflected the blast away from him with a chop to the right. Klarion grit his teeth and continued to fire bolts at the blonde and his female partner, which they avoided or deflected, before he noticed what the teens were trying to conceal. Nelson was trying to discreetly make his way to the bell. His next shot was sent at Kent, only to be blocked as Donna threw herself in the way, being forced to slide back and strike the wall. Donna. Naruto cried out in concern for his friend before another blast struck Kent. No. Hey, if I can't have the power of Nabu, then no one can, Klarion said before an arrow flew past his head. Grr, you nuisance. We've got this. Artemis called to Naruto as she and Aqualad engaged Klarion. Check on them. Naruto nodded and went to the Sorcerer Supreme's side first, kneeling next to him. Kent looked up and grinned. winking weakly before using his cane to strike the bell. The two vanished once more as Donna started to get up. They appeared on the top of the tower, just a few steps away from the Helmet of Fate. Naruto ignored the powerful artifact in order to check on the man he idolized. Kent chuckled once more. "Ah, it's come at last." "Not yet, Kent, please. You can make it through this if you put the helmet back on," Naruto urged. He was confused as the man chuckled. "You remind me a lot of myself, Naruto," Kent said softly, "a young man that wants to do the right thing, burdened to carry something for his life. All you need is that one Spitfire. My time has come, I need to see her again." Naruto saw the acceptance in the monk's eyes and the hopeful sparkle at seeing his love once more. He couldn't deny the man that, asking him to deny seeing his love just to be a guest in his own body. Naruto wouldn't wish that on anyone, not even on that annoying skeptical kid Flash. However, he also wouldn't let anyone die alone, so he sat and waited, holding Kent Nelson's hand as the monk's breathing came to a still. Taking a deep breath, Naruto then looked at the Helmet of Fate. The very entity he had asked for help just a few days prior was trapped in the artifact. The Lord of Order had no body of his own, choosing to bind himself to an inanimate object unlike the Lord of Chaos that fought his friends. Klarion wasn't going to hold back if he delayed this any longer. "Well, guess it's time for a new Sorcerer Supreme to step up," Naruto thought with a heavy sigh before walking over to the helmet and pulling it from its place. Lifting it above his head, Naruto closed his eyes and whispered. After Naruto and Kent vanished again, Klarion had enough and started to get serious. The team was scattered around the room with various injuries. Superboy was down from a large sphere of magic encasing him and growing smaller, restricting him and slowly suffocating him. Artemis was pinned to the wall with her own arrows. Struggling to get down from where she was pinned, Miss Martian was unconscious at her feet after being thrown headfirst into the wall by the Chaos Lord. Aqualad was coughing up blood as he struggled to move from the ground. Kid Flash was clutching at his right leg, having been broken when Klarion summoned a steel ton weight and slammed it onto his calf. Donna herself was only still conscious and able to fight due to her experience in past lives, but was being beaten down by Abracadabra's magic. Donna slowly pushed herself back to her hands and knees, only to get stomped on the back by Abra. The mockery of a magician sneered down at her before looking to the Lord of Chaos. "What do we do now? Without Kent, the Helmet of Fate is lost." "Oh, you're so very wrong, silly mortal," Klarion said with a chuckle as he walked over to the downed speedster, stomping on Wally's broken leg. Basking in the cry of pain that came from the red-headed teen, Klarion continued. "The little fox will show himself as soon as we threaten his friends' lives, and with that, we will gain the Helmet of Fate, taking Nabu's power for our own." "I think not," a deep voice echoed around them. Klarion swiveled around and searched for the origin. "Abra. Show yourself, hero," said the young Lord of Chaos mockingly. "You've caused a lot of problems here, Chaotic One," the voice said. Klarion swiveled around and found golden figure floating down from the ceiling. Based on his height, he was once Nicholas J. Blood, but now he couldn't be called Dr. Fate. The cape once covering his back was missing, replaced by golden shoulder pads. The traditional royal blue color had turned to a dark blood red, and the eyes of Nabu were a faded tint of white. "It is my duty as a Lord of Order to stop you," the being continued before reaching out for Abracadabra, "but first, I must punish you for what you have done as my demonic honor demands." Demonic honor?" Abracadabra repeated before he reached for his throat. Air was being deprived of him. In fact, it felt like his lungs were the direct targets rather than his throat. "All right, mighty Dr. Fate, we surrender," Klarion mocked him with a bow, not seeing the danger unfold in front of him. "You may take us away." "Foolish boy. I am not Dr. Fate," the being announced as its eyes turned red and his grip around Kadabra's tightened. "I am Lord Fate, and you will suffer under my rule." Klarion watched in horror as someone he saw as a weak peacekeeper suffocated the man he had manipulated. This was bad. Nabu didn't kill. Neither did that little fox. So something else was causing this, but what? And how? Abracadabra's eyes rolled up into his skull and his struggling ceased. "Doctor." Lord Fate lowered his hand and the foe magician dropped like a sack of potatoes, either on the verge of death or already crossing the line. The now glowing red eyes turned on the Lord of Chaos and took one threatening step forward. Klarion took a step back, glancing at his fallen ally momentarily, before glaring at the Lord of Order. "You are bound by your oath, Nabu. You cannot kill me." "Who says I am Nabu?" Lord Fate asked with a dark chuckle. He raised his hand to deflect the blast that came from Klarion and the red eyes narrowed. "That was most unwise." Lord Fate's form vanished in a flash of red and he reappeared behind Klarion, backhanding the Lord of Chaos forward. Klarion quickly spun around to look up in fear at the menacing form that approached him. Lord Fate cracked his knuckles and his eyes gleamed. "I would like to say that this will hurt me more than it will hurt you, but I would be lying," he said. From his knuckles sprouted 4-inch long spikes the same gold as his armor. Clarion's eyes went wide, and I don't lie. Naruto groaned as he came to, his hand going up to rub his head. There was the sound of an explosion and he looked over to see Dr. Fate fighting his demon, Kurama. The nine-tailed fox snarled as a gold beam hit him, swinging at the nimbly flying Lord of Order with his hand like paw. I am in control here, Trinket. This body now belongs to me, Kurama said with a roar. Naruto groaned and thought back to how this started. After he put the helmet on, Naruto woke up in his mindscape with Kent and the helmet of Nabu. They were in a cage and Kurama taunted them, saying that he was going to take Naruto's body and use Nabu's power to get his vengeance. When asked why, Kurama just laughed and sneered down at them, saying only because I can. Nabu and Kent then decided to work together, the elder mage pulling Nabu onto his head and becoming Dr. Fate. They broke out of the cage and attacked the demon. Kurama knocked Naruto to the side, the blonde hitting a wall and falling unconscious for a brief moment of time. And that was pretty much everything till the present. Naruto got to his feet and ran at Kurama. Farewell to the comfort of skin and bone. Oof. One of Kurama's tails swung at him, pinning him against the cell wall. Naruto groaned, his head lolling forward as the tail slithered around him, wrapping him up. The giant demon's snout curled up into a cruel smirk and he brought the entrapped teen up to look him in his red eyes. Foolish boy, Kurama said, backhanding Dr. Fate absent-mindedly while he spoke to Naruto. Your power is my power, without my cooperation, you are nothing. Why are you doing this? We had a good thing going, Naruto said, failing to understand why Kurama would act out like this so suddenly. Before my power was restrained by your true father's seal, but now, thanks to your foolish selflessness, I will return to the world with more power than before. Kurama said, snarling, I will rip apart the laws of magic until I find my way back to our rightful dimension, and I will lay waste to it. You can't, Naruto said, I am the Lord of Order now. Kurama said with a sneer. He slammed Naruto against the cell walls before he brought the whiskered blonde back to his eyesight. You are just an insignificant ant I will crush beneath my feet. You're doing all this, for revenge? Naruto asked. Did you just put that together? Kurama asked scathingly. Naruto ignored it. That's stupid. You're taking over my body just for revenge on someone who's already dead. He lives on, boy, in the stomach of the Shinigami, the god of death. He will be helpless as the village he loved oh so dearly is crushed beneath my might. And then I will find that Uchiha bastard and rip his eyes out of his head, Kurama said with a snarl. It'll take too long for you to find the right dimension, Naruto said, struggling in the tail's grasp. By the time you do, my body will have given out and you'll have died. Not true, for you see my demonic influence combined with the immortality of the trinket's power. Your body will last exactly as long as I want it to, Kurama said. He smirked, I have all the time in the world. No, I can't have you interfering now, familiar, Lord Fate said, restraining the tiger like Tikal by crucifying him to a manifested Ankh. Klarion cried out the familiar's name in concern and looked at his tormentor in horror. None of his spells were working. Just what the hell was that stupid fox boy? How did he pull on the helmet of fate and come out like this? I would run if I were you, Lord Fate said, appearing behind Klarion. Klarion spun around and backed away, raising his hand. A beam of magic shot out and Lord Fate took the blast right to the face. Klarion let the magic die down with a terrified yet hopeful grin as smoke covered Lord Fate's head. The Lord of Chaos' smile turned horrified as the helmet remained, looking unscathed and glaring blood-red eyes at him. That wasn't very nice, Lord Fate said, raising a single clawed finger at Klarion. Say you're sorry. Aye. Klarion struggled to find the words. He couldn't believe that would happen. Not good enough, Lord Fate said. He fired a beam of golden magic at Klarion, making the Lord of Chaos writhe in agony. Lord Fate scoffed. Is it too much, bitch boy? I will kill you, Klarion said, glaring daggers at Lord Fate. I sincerely doubt that, Lord Fate said. He crushed his fingers into a fist and Clarion's screams grew. We have to stop him, Donna said, trying to get to her feet. Naruto, take the helmet off. Lord Fate turned to her, releasing Klarion from his spell. He stalked over to her, reaching down and wrapping his hand around her throat. Lord Fate lifted her off the ground with a chuckle. Naruto? Dear girl, don't you understand? I am not that foolish boy. I am Lord Fate, the new Lord of Order. Put her down, Kid Flash said, struggling to get to his feet despite his fast regenerative abilities. Gladly, Lord Fate said, tossing Donna at the bubble that entrapped Superboy. The bubble popped and the two went flying into the wall, slumping down after hitting it. Lord Fate kept his attention on the speedster. You're the skeptic, are you not? Yeah, what of it? Kid Flash asked. Lord Fate's eyes narrowed and he lifted his hand. A golden glow encased Kid Flash's broken leg, levitating it off the ground and making the teen dangle in the air. Hey! Let me down. You overestimate yourself, Boy, Lord Fate said, bringing the levitating leg into his grasp and tightening his grip around it. You run headfirst into problems and nearly got me killed before I obtained this power. For this, you must be punished. Kid Flash bit on his lip to keep from screaming, just glaring at the mystical entity. Lord Fate chuckled at that. Fiery, hot-headed, you need a counter-fire to douse you, to keep you in check. Kent had a word for it, Spitfire, I believe. Alas, he is not here and I am not a matchmaker. I am, however, able to slow you down. What do you may Kid Flash was cut off as the golden glow surrounded him. To the conscious members of the team's eyes, he was turned into a tortoise with a red lightning bolt on the back of his shell. Maybe I'll have tortoise soup when I am finished here, Lord Fate said with a chuckle. He dropped the reptilian Kid Flash to the ground and stepped on his shell when the animal started to move. You're not going anywhere, not until lunchtime. Change him back and take the helmet off, Superboy said, glaring as he got to his feet with Donna. Aqualad also rose to his feet, cradling his ribs. Miss Martian helped Artemis get out of her jam and, holding her head, joined the rest of the team as they stood to face Lord Fate. I don't think so, in fact, Lord Fate suddenly cut himself off, freezing in place as he did. The team shared a look with each other while Donna took a cautious step forward. Careful, Aqualad said, being steadied by Superboy when he started to fall to his knee. Donna reached out and put her hand on Lord Fate's wrist. It's not a trick, he's frozen. Miss Martian closed her eyes and zeroed in on Lord Fate's mind, stumbling back with a gasp. There's a war going on in his mind. How is that possible? Aqualad asked. I told you all before that he had a demonic side. I was generalizing it. Naruto has the unfortunate curse of housing a demon within him, acting as a prison to a beast from another dimension, Donna said, her hand retracting as she bent down to pick the tortoise Kid Flash up. That demon must have taken control of Naruto's body when Naruto put the helmet on. The fact he froze means only one thing. Naruto is fighting back. You annoying nuisance, Kurama said with a snarl as he flicked Naruto out of his tail. You bit my tail. Well, as much as I love your hugs, Kurama, Naruto said with a grunt from where he hit the ground. He looked at his hands and narrowed his eyes. Fires of hell, serve me well. Blood's son commands you burn the foe. Now cover me from head to toe. Naruto ignited in hellfire, rushing forward and throwing a fireball at the demon. Kurama blocked it with his tails, being sent skidding back by an accompanying spell from Dr. Fate. The helmeted mage brought his hands together, an ankh-like beam of magic firing at the nine-tailed monster. Kurama had to use his tails to shield himself, being in a limited space. You can't win, beast, Dr. Fate said. The world needs Dr. Fate, and I am more powerful than you. You are but a trinket that is no better than myself, Kurama said from behind his tails. The tails parted and Kurama opened his mouth, firing a giant ball of pure hatred-filled energy. Move, Naruto said, tackling Dr. Fate to the ground before the Lord of Order could make a shield. Foolish boy. What is wrong with you? Dr. Fate asked, pushing Naruto off of him. He raised his cape to fend off the force that came from the impact of Kurama's attack. Lowering it, the Lord of Order found a giant crater that nearly collapsed the walls of Kurama's cage before it repaired itself. Trust me, no magic can stop a Bijudama. Itrigan found that out the hard way, Naruto said, shuddering as he remembered that day he first used the powerful attack. He was all the way at 8 tails, fighting Itrigan in the grounds of the Blood Estate. It had certainly gotten the League's attention, but Batman covered it up with a story about the Gentleman Ghost trying to use a spell that would switch his place with Jason Blood and Itrigan. We shall see about that, Dr. Fate said, standing up and doing a gesture with his hand. A high incoherent voice came from his lips and his hands extended out, a large green ankh beam firing at the demonic fox. Kurama took the hit, roaring in pain as he was sent backwards. This isn't working, Naruto said to himself. He made a large ball of fire appear in his hand and then threw it at Kurama, getting a hit in the fox's red eye. Kurama roared again and built up another Bijudama. Naruto held his hands out at Kurama. The fox's mouth says too much, it's time for him to learn to hush. Fiery chains shot out from his hands and wrapped around Kurama's muzzle, closing it tightly over the incomplete Bijudama. Kurama's eyes widened as his muzzle exploded. The chains wrapped around it, breaking and sending Naruto tumbling back. The blonde sat up and rubbed the back of his head, groaning as he did. Okay. That was a bad idea, Naruto said. The fire around him had been extinguished because of the amount of magic needed for the other spell. He got back to his feet and regrouped with Dr. Fate. What do we do? That seemed to have hurt him. Indeed, it seems he is most vulnerable to his own attacks, Dr. Fate said analytically. The Sorcerer Supreme narrowed his eyes. We will have to find a way to send a full Bijudama back at him. Or I could try to make one on my own, Naruto said, getting a look from Dr. Fate. Just because it's his power doesn't mean it's not mine. He's in my body and as far as I am concerned, that makes me his warden. He wants a comfier cell? he better bribe me. A strange analogy, but accurate, Dr. Fate said, nodding. Very well, I will try to buy you some time. The Sorcerer Supreme rose up from the ground and encased himself with magic before flying at Kurama. Naruto ran to the wall where one of the pipes was, plunging his fist through the pipeline. Naruto grunted in pain and narrowed his eyes as something washed over his hand. That had to be the demonic energy that had been fueling him his entire career as a hero. This is it then, Kurama's power, Naruto said. He closed his eyes and focused on the energy, gritting his teeth as he did. Naruto's eyes snapped open, blood red and slid before the red turned to purple, and then went from purple to blue and lightened until they were back to his natural eye color. Embrace the evil, lose the storm. It's time for this mortal to change form. Naruto felt his body grow in height and the fur sprout from his skin. Instead of red, it was as golden as his natural hair, like the sun had kissed it. His muscles expanded and contracted as bones snapped into place. When it was all said and done, he found himself rearing his head back, and then the fully changed Vulp let loose a prideful roar. No, Kurama said, outraged, that is my power. You are not to have it. You don't seem to get it, Fuzzbutt. Vulp said, snarling at the large fox. He rushed at the giant fox until either he started to grow or Kurama started to shrink. They collided with a loud bang that echoed through the cell. Naruto's arms holding Kurama's snapping jaws at bay while Kurama's hand-like forepaws grabbed the blonde Vulpine humanoid's arms. I am not locked in here with you, you're locked in here with me. Dr. Fate watched on with interest, distancing himself from the fight. With the demon distracted, he was welcome to take control of the body that wore the helmet of fate. The team watched as Lord Fate's costume turned from blood red to a dark blue. The armor that made him look like a terrifying warlord changed back to the more noble and calm helmet and cape of Dr. Fate. They grinned as the red eyes died down into calm blues, though the slitted pupils still unnerved them slightly. Naruto? Donna asked hesitantly. The one known as Naruto is preoccupied, Dr. Fate said. He turned to Klarion, who glared at him from the ground. Begone from here, Chaos Lord. The Tower of Fate does not welcome you. You haven't seen the last of me, Klarion said between labored breaths as an Ankh appeared beneath him, swallowing him whole. His familiar Tikal was absorbed into the Ankh. It was crucified on an abracadabra, found himself being swallowed into the floor, while Klarion was banished back to another dimension with his familiar abracadabra would awake in a prison hospital, 6 months from now, that is. What about Kid Flash? Miss Martian asked. Dr. Fate turned to her and looked at the tortoise in Donna's arms. As you were, young hero, he said with a wave of his hand. A gold glow encompassed the tortoise and Kid Flash reappeared as he usually was. He grinned at Donna. I knew you'd see the light, he said, yelping when Donna promptly dropped him on his, hey. The youngest daughter of Queen Hippolyta approached Dr. Fate. What about Naruto? He is preoccupied, Dr. Fate said in a mix of Nabu and Naruto's voices. He turned abruptly and walked to the wall. You may all leave, the Tower of Fate is no longer at risk. Like hell I am leaving, Donna said, glaring at the form of the Sorcerer Supreme. You can't just take over his body. Dr. Fate paused and turned around to look at her, his eyes narrowing. Says who? Jason Blood, Batman, the Justice League, humanity as a whole, Donna said. She pointed at him with a scowl on her face. If you hold his body hostage, that would make you no better than Lord Fate. The world needs Dr. Fate, the dual voices said sternly, no matter the cost. Who are you to decide that? Donna asked. You let Kent Nelson remove the helmet, why won't you allow Naruto to do the same? For as long as I remain in control, the beast within him is held at bay, Dr. Fate said. By Naruto, Aqualad said, wincing as he held his side. He took a deep breath before continuing. You'll leave him to fight the demon off alone. Eventually he will tire and Lord Fate will return. You would risk that just to keep a body? Admittedly it's not a perfect plan, Dr. Fate said, his eyes narrowing in thought. He turned and fully faced the team. I guess you raise good points. Come, I will prepare medical services and then remove the helmet. The team shared a glance and Donna frowned, but they followed him all the same. Kid Flash grinned as they walked into an elevator. I knew there was some science to this. A hidden elevator, ow. Calder, what was that for? It is not the time for you to try to decipher the magic of this place, Aqualad said, giving Kid Flash the best glare he could manage. Because of your foolish comment before, we nearly got ourselves killed and one of our accomplices had been weakened by a counter to his inner demons. Do not think I won't be bringing this up to Batman when we return to the cave. Wah dude, I was turned into a freaking turtle, isn't that punishment enough? Kid Flash asked. No, the rest of the team said. Skepticism was fine, but in this instance it nearly got them killed and had hindered more than helped. For your own safety, Kid Flash, I would suggest you keep your mouth closed, Donna said, giving the speedster a glare from the corner of her eyes. Kid Flash opened his mouth to argue and then thought better of it when he saw Donna look at Dr. Fate.
He closed his mouth and stared at the back of Dr. Fate's head, thinking about what Aqualad said.
You will lose here, brat, Kurama said, snarling at Vulp. The golden Vulpine human had found himself pinned by Kurama, the 9 tails wrapping his hand-like paws around Naruto's, and not only will it be your body, but your life. You'll never win, Vulp said, struggling to pull Kurama's paws off his. Kurama's grin widened and he opened his mouth to retort, only getting a golden blast for his troubles that sent him tumbling to the back of the room. Vulp rolled to his side, holding his as he coughed while an elderly hand reached out to help him up. Come on, son, Kent Nelson said, pulling Vulp to his feet, you can finish this. Vulp shook his head and coughed, no, I can't kill him. He's done nothing wrong except for trying to take over my body. I can't blame him for that. Kent just stared at him before chuckling, you're a good man, Nicholas. Your father must be very proud of you. I hope so, Vulp said, turning and facing Kurama as the demon got back to its feet. Vulp clenched his hands into fists. This ends now, Kurama. You are the prisoner and I am your warden. No longer will I be contained within you. I will have my vengeance, Kurama said, snarling at him. I'll kill you and take over your body. I will end this world and every other until I get what I deserve.
I won't let that happen, Vulp said. He held his hands in front of his chest and closed his eyes. I've had enough of this monster's drama. Powers of my native home, give me the strength to make a Bijudama. The ball of energy flickered into view before it started to get larger and larger. Kurama built his own Bijudama up in his mouth, swallowing the complete form before releasing it at Vulp and Kent Nelson. Vulp's eyes snapped open and his Bijudama jumped from the size of a large ball to the size of a planet. As I said before, I am your warden, Vulp said, scowling as he threw the Bijudama at the 9-tailed fox. Go back to your cell. The two attacks collided, but Vulp's absorbed the Kyuubi's mighty blast. Kurama's eyes widened in horror as the planet-sized attack approached him, his tail shooting out in front of him as a makeshift wall in an effort to protect himself from what he believed would be certain death. The large ball of magic collided with Kurama's tails and the fox let out an earth-shaking roar. Vulp turned and brought Kent Nelson down to the ground with him as the Bijudama exploded. The force of the blast sent them flying nonetheless, Vulp changing back to his normal form as they did. The two humans came out of the blast in a roll, Naruto groaning as he lifted his head. He looked behind him, the smoking form of Kurama lying on his back, unmoving. You must finish it, a deep voice said. Naruto turned and saw the helmet of fate hovering in front of him. End the demon's existence now while you can. No, Naruto said. He could see Nabu blinking in shock, and Naruto pressed on, turning around and moving his arms. The prisoner is down. All is well, now I recreate the creature's cell. Red poles shot up from the ground around Kurama and Naruto smiled as golden reinforcements latched themselves onto the doors along with a large tag on the main doors. The blonde walked over to the cell, putting his hand on the gate. I am sorry you were wronged, Kurama, but I can't let you run rampant in my body, Naruto said, turning around to face Nabu and Kent Nelson. He addressed Kent first, since he was still sort of confused over his presence. Mr. Nelson, why are you still here? I've lived a long life and while I miss Inza, I can wait a bit longer until I see her again, Kent said. Smiling at Naruto, he turned to Nabu. Besides, someone should keep the Lord of Order company until a proper partner is found. What? Naruto asked. You were preoccupied with your demonic half, but Nabu recovered control over your body. He had quite the conversation with your friends, Kent said, Nabu remaining silent. But the world needs Dr. Fate, Naruto said in protest. Dr. Fate does not need you, Nabu said. I realize now how dangerous a host you are, containing 2 minds instead of 1. While the world needs Dr. Fate, the multiverse does not need Lord Fate. I see, Naruto said. He held his hand out to Kent. Thank you, for everything you've done. Kent Nelson, the Sentinels of Magic will never be the same. Kent smiled and took Naruto's hand. A glow came from the meeting and Naruto looked in his hand to find a golden stopwatch. This is, he said, Solomon's watch, Kent said with a smile. I've been looking for a good replacement for a while now. The Sentinels need another senior member. I don't know, I can't, Naruto struggled to find words. You can, and you will, Kent said. He put his hand on Naruto's shoulder. You're a good man, a fine magician, and a better hero than I could ever be. Thank you. Why are we in costume again? Kid Flash asked, not fully annoyed, but not entirely thrilled to be back at the location of the Tower of Fate. Artemis smacked him upside the back of the head. Ow. Use your head, kid, Flash said from where he stood next to him. The whole league was present for the funeral, including the original Flash, Jay Garrick, a retired Lantern named Alan Scott and Wildcat, the 2 founders of the Justice Society of which Nelson was a part of. Flash bowed his head as Jason Blood, Jay Garrick, Wildcat and Red Tornado walked past carrying the casket of Kent Nelson. They set the casket onto the grave liner and went to their seats.
Jason sat next to Naruto, putting a solemn face on as he did. Naruto had bags under his eyes from being up all night.
Looking into every possible person that would have wanted to attend Kent's funeral and confirming the message he sent through the Watch of Solomon, Jason glanced at his son, his eyes going to the watch that had yet to leave his hand. He had wanted to be the one to welcome Naruto into the top tier of the Sentinel circles. When he felt Naruto was ready, another thing he feels he has lost grip of in terms of his son's advancement, he returned his attention forward when Alan Scott stepped up.
Friends, heroes, and welcome guests, thank you all for coming. The former Green Lantern said. He looked so sad in the eyes of the guests. Alan cleared his throat before he continued. Today marks the end of a hero who has saved this planet more times than even Superman.
But Kent Nelson was more than Dr. Fate. Kent Nelson was my friend. Together, we formed the First League, the Justice Society of America. We fought back to back against the Nazis in the Second War, stopping their occult scientists from reviving a demon. There was this Dr. Goobston. He tried to kill the society with gas, but Kent stopped the gas easily with a spell, teleported to where Goobston was and then punched him square in the face. He was blunt like that.
There was some scattered chuckling and Alan Scott continued his eulogy.
Talking about the business more than the pleasure. When he finished speaking, Jay Garrick went up to the stage and gave a similar eulogy, talking instead about Kent's bachelor party in Las Vegas, how they saw a magician and Kent got them kicked out for ruining the show. Wildcat referred to a job against Dr. Fate's nemesis Woden, not going into specifics but remarking how selfless Kent was in life and how he deserved to be with the woman he loved after death.
The ceremony finished and the casket was lowered into the grave. Naruto saw a ghostly figure appear behind the grave before it slunk into the shadows. He walked up with his father and placed a single rose, saying another silent goodbye, apology and gratitude for choosing himself as the replacement for Dr. Fate. With it all said and done, the guests left along with most heroes. Some stayed behind, and it attracted the team's attention.
Where are they going? Kid Flash asked, pointing Naruto and his father out to Robin. Robin's eyes widened when he saw a green hooded figure appear next to Jason Blood. That's the Spectre. It's a meeting. Of what? The Sentinels of Magic, Aqualad said softly, answering Kid Flash's question. Other heroes of the Mystic Persuasion soon gathered near Jason, Naruto and the Spectre. One was a notable member of the League, Blue Devil, a former actor named Daniel Sadi that got himself stuck in a suit that granted him enhanced strength and his other senses. A man wearing a trench coat and puffing on a lit cigarette walked past them.
Who was that? Superboy asked, annoyed with the way the man held himself. John Constantine, Robin said. He's a criminal. What's he doing here? He's not a criminal. The team turned to address Batman, who stood behind them. John Constantine is an expert on the occult and a well-known exorcist. He's not the ideal hero, but he's not a criminal either. Batman narrowed his eyes as John nodded to Jason and shook Naruto's hand firmly. If it weren't for his attitude, he would have been a part of the League a decade ago. What's so bad about him? Robin asked. Isolationist, cynical, manipulative, and trustworthy, take your pick. So, he's a lot like you? Batman just glared at Robin. I choose to take your silence as a yes. He's also the world's greatest con man, Batman said. He shook his head suddenly and glared at the spot next to him. Deadman. Stop possessing me. Deadman? Kid Flash asked. He worked with some close friends before he was killed. He's now a ghost and can possess bodies. For some reason, he enjoys possessing mine. Batman glowered. Well, that's because it's fun to mess with you, Robin said. He laughed sheepishly from the glare Batman gave him. I mean, that's suicidal. Sure you did. Batman looked away and narrowed his eyes behind his cowl, watching the Sentinels walk into the Tower of Fate. He turned to leave. Let's go, we're done here. He's too young. Giovanni Zatara slammed his hand onto the table. He was one of the 8 seated around a shield that had the symbol on the Watch of Solomon. When he learned that a boy not even out of high school took Kent Nelson's place in the Sentinels, it was needless to say he was against the movement. His eyes narrowed on the boy that sat next to Jason Blood. He is inexperienced, impulsive and reckless. Zatara brings up a good point, said a woman with a band around her eyes. She shuffled through some cards and flipped one over. The boy is not of good age, he is still young. Kent chose him to hold the watch. We should honor his last wishes, said the Spectre. Next to him, the lightly hovering form of Deadman nodded. We accepted Blue Devil only a few weeks after his first fight in the suit. It was hard, though. I barely came to terms with it all. Blue Devil shuddered slightly. There were things I wasn't ready for. You managed fine. I think he'll be okay. I wasn't much older when I first joined the Sentinels. John Constantine took a puff of his cigarette and looked at the suspiciously quiet Jason Blood. What do you say, Blood? He is your son. All eyes went to Jason, except for Naruto's. He already knew what his father thought about it. The Knight of Camelot looked around the table, his hands intertwining as he looked at the sacred sign of Solomon with a sigh. Nicholas is young, especially when compared to a few of us here.
He is brash, reckless, and still learning. Jason paused to let that sink in, looking around at the other sentinels. However, he is also tenacious, quick on his feet, a good student, at times, and has shown the willingness and heart that is needed to be a hero. As his father, I would like nothing more than to take the watch from him and find another more suited, but as a member of this circle, I know that young blood is needed. As it is, I am at an imp.
As is the rest of the circle, the Spectre gestured to the other members. However, you all continue to ignore that Kent Nelson, a man who held the watch of Solomon as long as blood, chose that boy to take his place. We don't know if it was a temporary decision or not, though, the woman with the blindfold said. The only one who knows the answer to that is Kent. Deadman, are you able to communicate with Kent? Blue Devil asked. No, believe me, I have tried, Deadman said, his head shaking. I wanted to have one more word with him before he left, to thank him for all his help. He's with Nabu. Eyes went to the whiskered blonde, who continued to stare at his watch. Naruto looked up, his eyes distant and distracted. Kent Nelson has decided to wait within the Helmet of Fate until Nabu finds a new host. Then the answer is simple, John Constantine said, flicking his cigarette slightly. We need the helmet back. The League has entrusted it to their Black Operatives team, Blue Devil said. They won't allow us to simply take it. You don't know that, Zatara said. I am part of the same branch as you and Batman is in control of that team, Blue Devil said, his eyes narrowing. You think he would let us just hang on to it? John snorted and took a drag of his cigarette. The old bat would love nothing more than to choose the next fate, even though we'd be far more suited. What are they going to use it for? A keepsake? A piece of decoration? Nabu has got to be going stir crazy, pissed as all hell if that's the case. I could maybe get it back. I sort of know the team, Naruto said. John scoffed. You don't know Batman. He wouldn't let us near the Helmet of Fate just to spite some of us. To spite you, con man. Zatara gave a pointed glare to John Constantine. The Englishman rolled his eyes. Zatara sat back in his seat, considering Kent is beyond our reach, for now anyway, and Jason is at a stalemate. We must cast the Vulpine out. It's Vulp, Naruto said, correcting the magician with a frown. For some reason Zatara never liked him. It baffled the whiskered boy. What about a trial period? Blue Devil asked. The members of the circle turned to him. To see how things play out, we may be able to see what Kent saw if we keep the watch of Solomon with him. He can prove to us and himself his worthiness of being a member of the circle. It is a fair trade. The blindfolded woman folded her cards and flipped another. She glanced at the ghost of vengeance when he snorted. What, Spectre? It isn't fair, Xanadu, said the Spectre bitingly. Vengeance is fair. After all, if everyone is blind, no one can see the beauty of the sun. What we are doing is disregarding Kent's wishes. We are not disregarding his wishes, Spectre. We are merely waiting until we have an audience with Kent. Deadman tried to calm down the spirit of vengeance. Fine, but once we have an audience with him or Nabu, we will decide, Spectre said. I suppose we should ask the one who this affects the most, Zatara said, looking to the immortal knight that sat near him. What say you, Jason? Jason looked around the table, his eyes landing on Naruto before looking back at Zatara. I may be a protective father, Zatara, but unlike others, I can recognize when there is a time to step back. Zatara narrowed his eyes, meeting Jason's gaze before it broke, then were agreed. Nods went around the table and the magician's eyes went to Naruto. You are hereby on probation as the next member of the circle, Nicholas J. Blood. We will be watching you. Thank you, Naruto said, his head bowing in gratitude. The rest of the circle rose from their seats, the candles in the room bursting to life as they filed out. Naruto looked at his father when the knight put a hand on his shoulder. Dad. I meant every word I said in there. Nicholas, Jason smiled at his son. You are foolhardy at times and lazy at others, but overall I believe you will make a good addition to the circle. Thanks, Dad. You're still grounded, though. What? Ah, come on. Naruto left the room with hung head, dismayed over his inability to persuade his father to unground him. Honestly, you spill 1 GL of water on a lady's chest. Naruto. The blonde perked up at his nickname and grinned at the young girl dressed in a magician's outfit. Hey, Z, how's it going? He asked with a grin. Zatanna's cheeks pinked slightly, but she continued to smile at him. I can't believe you're a member of Solomon's circle. I am so jealous. I am not an official member yet, Naruto said while scratching the back of his head sheepishly. Still, I'd love to be able to prove myself, but my dad's too protective. I wish he was like your dad, sometimes. You want to trade? As much as I don't like my dad's overbearing nature, I wouldn't trade him for the world, Zatanna said with a smirk. Plus, I don't know how you can handle the demon. I saw him once and I nearly wet myself. Ah, he's not so bad, Naruto said. He frowned. He's going to be so pissed. He really liked Mr. Nelson. Zatanna's smile dimmed at that. I only met Mr. Nelson twice. He was always really nice. Yes, he was, Naruto said softly. He helped me with my magic. Would you like to see? Zatanna asked. Naruto smiled at her, grateful for the change in subject, and nodded. She beamed and pointed at a plant, her mouth opening to unveil her family's special magic. Zatanna. The blonde and the magician turned to see Giovanni Zatara approach. He gave Naruto a look of warning and then looked at his daughter. It is time for us to go, come along.
But Dad, Zatara gave his daughter a look that had her pouting. Yes, sir, she turned to Naruto with a smile on her face. Let's hang out some time, bye, Naruto.
Bye Z, Naruto said with a smile. He nodded to Zatara. Zatara. Nicholas. Zatara narrowed his eyes. He put his hand on Zatanna's shoulder. Imo kcabisu a cat. They vanished with a plume of smoke, leaving Naruto behind. The blonde shook his head. What the hell was Zatara's issue with him? Gotham City, August 22, 6:02 Eastern Daylight Saving Time. Naruto slipped between two trunk-like legs as a Meve fist came down on him. He flipped to his feet and made some distance between himself and his adversary. The former Lord of Santa Prisca snarled and spun around, glaring at him.
Tell me where I can find the bat, Nino, and I promise I won't break all of your bones, Bane said, glaring at the blonde nuisance that was taking the shift of Gotham's downtown.
I told you, the Batmobile lost a wheel and Joker got away. He has bigger things to worry about right now, Naruto said with a cheeky grin. Little impudent, I'll grind your bones into dust and scatter them in the ocean, Bane said with a seething snarl as he cranked the knob on his left wrist, increasing the amount of venom running through his veins. His muscles bulged and grew, making Naruto's grin fall. When he was finished he gave an angry roar and reached down to rip up the street, lifting the concrete over his head. Why do I always fight the big guys? Naruto asked under his breath. He jumped up and ran over the soaring piece of roadway, clenching his fists as he did. Embrace the evil, lose the storm. It's time for this mortal to change his form. In a burst of golden flames Vulp emerged and pounced from the end of the street at Bane. The golden-furred werewolf roared as he wrapped his legs around Bane's and dug his claw-like hands into Bane's mask, reaching for the tube that supplied the venom. The drug lord cried out in anger and reached up, grabbing Vulp's sides. Bane pried Vulp from his head and tossed the demonic teen through a parked sedan and into a restaurant. The civilians in the restaurant cried out in horror while Vulp groaned. The table he landed on collapsed and he let out another groan. Waiter, table for two. Ill skin that fur from your hide, Nino, Bane said with a snarl as he stepped into the hole.
I was already at the groomer, thanks, Vulp said, lifting his hand up at the enormous man. My brightest light is not green, but it'll give him a blow from something equally mean. A giant, glowing red boxing glove shot out from Vulp's hand, sending Bane out through the hole he came in. Vulp got to his feet and cracked his, grabbing the table he had landed on and dragging it with him. He stopped at the hole and turned to one of the waiters. Hey, what restaurant is this? Vulp asked. Mio's Italian Diner and BB Bar, said the waiter, shaking in fear. Vulp nodded. Good to know, I'll come back later and fix the hole. You might not get this table back though. Keep it, you said it, not me. With that, Vulp jumped out the window and looked to the rising Bane. He gripped the table with both hands and roared as he charged the drug lord. Bane looked up just in time for a wooden table to be broken into splinters on his face. Bane arched a brow under his mask and snapped his arm out, his Miv hand wrapped around Vulp's throat. Getting to his feet and lifting the werewolf above his head. Was that the best you got? A simple table. No, that was just a distraction, Vulp said as best he could. The Vulpine hero slammed his fists into either side of Bane's wrist, making the drug lord cry out as he was forced to let go of Vulp's throat. Vulp fell to his hands and knees, wheezing. You little, I am going to rip out your spine, Bane said with a snarl as he held his cracked wrist. The drug lord kicked the younger man in the ribs, causing Vulp to roll onto his back, and stomped down onto Vulp's chest, pinning the hero where he was and snarling at him. Any last words? 3, actually, Vulp said, struggling against Bane's weight. Look behind you. Bane arched a brow and turned around, getting the glimpse of what looked like a younger Wonder Woman punching him in the jaw. The venom-powered supervillain went flying through a concrete wall and landed inside of a store, causing people to scream in fear. Civilians fled as fast as they could while Bane got to his feet with a groan. Donna flew in, giving a war cry as she cocked her arm back. Bane caught her fist and then the other that was thrown at him.
There's two of us, dumb, Vulp said as he charged in, tackling the drug lord in the gut and driving him back with Donna's help.
All the easier to beat you. Bane tightened his grip on Donna's hands and brought her up and then down on top of Vulp. The two teenage heroes groaned and gasped for air as Bane grabbed their S. Let us try again. Nino, where is the bat?
Right here. Bane looked away from the choking Vulp as a batarang flew in and hit him in the face, releasing a small explosion on impact. Donna and Vulp were dropped to the ground, both holding their throats. Batman stalked in, his cape draped around him as he scowled at the cursing drug lord. What are you doing back in Gotham, Bane? Like you don't know? Bane rubbed at his eyes. My island was compromised twice, Bat. You cannot expect me to believe you had nothing to do with this. I didn't send Cobra after your island, Batman said. No, but your little bird was enough evidence that you knew something was going on, Bane said. He grabbed a support pillar and ripped it out of its place. Now I crush you for costing me a fortune in my home. Batman narrowed his eyes. Do it. What he lifts with ease changes weight, come crashing down on him with the forgiveness of the underworld's gates. Vulp brought his hand down to the ground. The pillar above Bane shone with a dark aura before it crashed down on Bane's head, knocking him out. Vulp groaned, rolled onto his back. I hate that spell, always tires me out. Get up, Batman said. I need your help. Vulp blinked and sat up. You need my help or the team needs my help? I need your help. Then why not go to Blood? Donna asked, helping Vulp to his feet. Because Blood is in Moscow, Batman said. Ah, I missed a trip to see Anya again. Vulp pouted. He yelped as Donna let him fall to his face. What was that for? Pig. Donna huffed as she followed Batman out. Vulp scowled and looked around, grabbing a hoodie before he left. He ripped off the security tag and slung it over his shoulder. Batcave, August 22, 7:12 Eastern Daylight Saving Time. I love that giant penny, Naruto said. He reached his hand out to a gun that was on a rack in Batman's trophy room. Don't touch that. Batman didn't bother turning around from where he was at the computer. Naruto pouted and stuffed his hands into his pockets, joining Donna, who stood near the bat with her arms crossed over her chest. So what's the deal, Batman? Naruto looked at the screen as a newspaper clipping came up. Abusive mother killed. Keep reading. Naruto rolled his eyes. Heather Court, 35, was found murdered in Crime Alley. Court, who has been fighting social services for custody of her 10-year-old son Luis, was an interior designer whose career had taken a turn for the worse when allegations of child abuse first arose 5 months ago. Allegations come from the paternal grandparents, Mason and Sloane Court, parents to deceased husband and father, Roger. They made their claim after Luis told them his back hurt during one visit. Heather picked him up before any pictures or inquiries could be made. Geez. This lady just can't catch a break. Read. All right, blah, 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 child abuse, husband died from fight between Clayface and Batman. It wasn't a national headliner, Batman said. Marco was trying to steal from a bank, brought the place down around him when we fought. I thought all the civilians were out. Sorry, just read. Naruto looked back at the article and gaped in shock. 4 stab wounds in perfect symmetry found in the victim's throat. God, bats, just what the hell are we looking at? I was hoping you could tell me, Batman said. He cupped his chin and sat back. Theoretically, a person with enough patience could slip behind her for the first stab, and once Court fell, they could ritualistically stab into the throat. 4 is a sacred number, isn't it? For a lot of religions, Naruto said. He typed into the computer and pulled up the whole file. Crime scene photos displayed themselves on screen and Naruto frowned as he pulled a close-up of Court's throat into view. This isn't ritualistic, this was simultaneous. That's what I thought. Batman scowled. Damn it, wait, how can you tell? Donna asked. Naruto scratched the back of his. I am not a forensics expert. I prefer occult stuff because it's easier for me to memorize, but you can tell from the tears in the throat that the weapons were inserted at the same time. See at the entry and exit wounds. Naruto highlighted the holes with a frown on his face. In the front, the entry wounds are about 1 inch, maybe 1.5 inches wide, but the exit is barely that, and they're all at least 1/2 inch apart. Any known weapons that can do that? Donna asked. I've already searched. Bognock, Batman said. He pulled the image up onto the screen. A small BR weapon with 4 short claws was on a display. Indian. They're similar to BR knuckles, only with blades. Some are designed to fit in the palm, but others are set to act like guitars, which I believe is how our murderers' weapons are made. It's said they were inspired by the claws of the giant cats. Those are too short, Naruto said. He frowned. Someone made their own with longer claws. My guess is the murderer is a martial artist. I've checked with some resources and learned it's not a member of the Shadows, Batman said. She got a look at her attacker before she died, Donna said. The murderer either had her turn around or appeared in front of her. Whatever he did it fast, Naruto said. Donna frowned at him. How do you know it was a he? It could be a woman, Batman said. A mother revealed to be abusive? That's a target for either. It was a slip of tongue, Naruto said. So, why did you ask for my opinion, Bats? You were in the area and I wanted to make sure that this wasn't another ritualistic killing, Batman said. Alfred will show you out. Donna gave a look to Naruto, who shrugged. You knew who he was, no point in denying it. Still, we can help, Donna said. Don't need it. Batman turned to look at them. Leave, now. Yeesh, so cruel, Naruto said, scowling as he turned and walked away. When they made it to the top of the stairs, Naruto looked at Donna with a smirk. We're so looking for this guy, aren't we? Was there ever any doubt? Donna asked. The clock blocking the entryway slid to the side and they walked out, Alfred Pennyworth waiting for them dutifully. Hey, Al, Naruto said. Please, Master Nicholas, don't call me Al. Alfred frowned slightly. Don't call me Master Nicholas, you know I can't do that. Then you will suffer, Al. I suppose so, Alfred said. He turned and smiled lightly at Donna. Hello. I don't believe we've had the pleasure. I am Alfred Pennyworth, loyal butler to Master Bruce and longtime friend of the Wayne family. Nice to meet you, Alfred, Donna said. She shook his hand. I am Donna Prince. A pleasure, Miss Prince. He gestured to the front door. Shall we, then? Master Bruce told me to take you back to the Blood Manor.
Thanks, Al. Of course, Master Nicholas. The butler led them out of the house and to the car that waited in the front. He held open the back door and both teens reluctantly got in. Alfred then went around to the front and got in the driver's seat. The car started up and soon enough they began the journey back to Naruto's home. I'll call a couple of contacts and tell them to keep a lookout for anything suspicious, Naruto said under his breath. He noticed a red flash and reached behind Donna, touching the small of her back. She turned and grabbed his wrist, preparing to throw him out the car. Naruto quickly retracted his hand and held up a beeping black device. Bats wants to make sure we don't go after this guy. He must be asked my dad for permission to ask me for help, but why not ask my dad about this?
You were on probation for the circle, Donna said. Maybe it was a test? I barely tested anything magical, though, Naruto said. He frowned and looked outside the window, his brow furrowing. Besides, even if I don't get the approval now I can always get it later. It'll just help find Nelson's successor. But first, we're going to find this guy, thanks.